The payment came through instantly, and once Ohio Man asked for a name, the matriarch revealed the target was Izan Sidin IV. That name shocked him because it exposed the target as the former crown princess, and the matriarch ranted that Izan deserved eternal suffering for using death magic. Ohio Man knew that story was a lie, because he had already heard from his wife that Izan was really destroyed by jealous family politics, and even Esther had been cast out after the power struggle. Even so, he took the paid job and searched the system for Izan's location. The search result led him straight to the Yen Dynasty planet and a place labeled Florida Domain, and the moment he saw that name, he knew this job had turned dangerous. After a long, guilty pause, Ohio Man sent Leo's coordinates to the matriarch anyway and could only apologize to himself. A day later, Ivy publicly announced Leo and Izan's grand wedding to the entire domain, the Tang clan, and even the commoners in the western town. The news spread fast, and while many people were happy for Leo, plenty of elders were stunned that Izan was the bride. Tang Xian was stunned too, but he quickly realized the wedding was the perfect chance for the newly arrived Tang clan to prove their sincerity to Leo. Because Leo already had more wealth and resources than anyone could match, the coming wedding sparked a month-long scramble to find a gift he might actually value. In West Slum, merchant Jiangqing obsessed over the same problem until he remembered Leo once traded precious resources for local produce and started thinking in terms of food. That insight led Jiangqing to a bolder plan, and he ordered his men to travel to Tapaya City and import spirit bulls from the joyous Yin-Yang sect. Han Hao and Han Meng reached a similar conclusion when they remembered that Leo turned ordinary plants into rare treasures and still needed merchandise for his store. Once they shifted from crops to livestock, Han Hao boldly suggested the joyous Yin-Yang sect's famous spirit bulls as a meat gift Leo might love. Without even informing the others, father and son rushed northeast toward the hidden joyous Yin-Yang sect. Beyond those mountains stood the joyous Yin-Yang sect, a secretive dual cultivation stronghold that lured men and women alike with sex, beauty, and body-altering techniques. After Leo destroyed Yanxiang's side, the fleeing Situ and Ouyang factions had even taken shelter there under the sect's protection. Inside the sect master's courtyard, Murongqi relaxed over tea with an injured Situ Nantian and casually asked whether Florida Man had really been that strong. Situ Nantian called Leo a monster with heavenly artifacts, but Murongqi dryly pointed out that his old friend was probably the one who had tried to steal first. Their conversation died there until Murongqi received new intelligence and learned that Leo was about to get married. The wedding news sent Situ Nantian into a rage, while Murongqi mocked him for acting more insane than the sect everyone else called perverted. After storming out, Situ Nantian secretly ordered his spies in Magpie City and Leo's domain to gather more information and, if possible, secure an invitation. Back in the courtyard, Murongqi reflected that Leo's domain was now the last real rival on the continent, and wondered whether to treat him as a future friend or a target. Then Murongqi summoned his pet bull Nancy, a gigantic black spirit bull that came flying in from the ranch at his call. Murongqi went straight behind the bull and collected its aphrodisiac urine, cheerfully calling it the perfect wedding gift. With the bag of spirit bull urine secured, Murongqi grinned and started planning whether to use the gift to tempt Leo or humiliate his bride during the wedding. In the battle bus bedroom, Izan sat beside Leo red-faced and dizzy while he tried to calm her down instead of forcing the marriage talk. When Leo gave her an easy way out, Izan shocked him by saying she was happy he had feelings for her and wanted to become his wife. Leo answered her resolve with a practical gift first, handing Izan the staff he had taken from her shadow so she could protect herself. Then he asked for Izan's hands so he could size a wedding ring, and her blush deepened when he gently held her fingers. Leo bought a cheap pair of diamond rings from the system and immediately maxed them out until the plain gold bands turned rainbow bright. With no more stalling left, Leo dropped to one knee and finally gave Izan a proper proposal despite how rushed and messy their situation was. Izan burst into tears and accepted anyway, saying she did not fully understand how they got here but still wanted to stay with him forever. Once they embraced, Leo asked if she wanted him young again, but Izan answered without hesitation that she liked him exactly as he was. That answer pushed Leo over the edge, and with a shameless grin he announced they should rehearse the wedding night. The next morning, the aftermath was obvious. Leo slept happily, while Izan could only bury her face in a pillow and suffer in exhausted silence. When Leo woke later that day, he found Izan still asleep beside him, while her aura spun like a vortex and kept dragging more chi into her body. He realized their night together had pushed Izan into the true immortal stage, and he kissed her forehead before jokingly calling her his wife. Even half asleep, Izan mumbled that Leo was a monster, and he just laughed and bragged that first time was a charm. Then the real shock hit in the bathroom, when Leo caught his reflection and saw that his body had become decades younger overnight. When Leo stepped into a hallway, Ivy was already waiting outside as if she had stood guard all night, and she immediately recognized him by his aura. Ivy openly treated Izan as accepted, but Leo made it clear he understood her scheming and would tolerate it only as long as she never crossed him. As Leo walked through the bus, the remaining elves all stood and bowed, while he noticed the pill users were still shut away in seclusion. After he left, Ivy slipped into the room, found Izan still sleeping, and quietly cleaned away every trace of the night like a very efficient attendant. Back at the store, Leo's younger face caused an immediate stir, and Wu Bai rushed over first to flood him with shameless praise. Leo did not explain the real reason for his age jump, but he trusted Wu Bai enough to hand him a new job training fresh cultivators as alchemists. Wu Bai also reminded him that the Tang clan had been waiting for an audience, so Leo finally decided to deal with them. That night, only Tang Tian came to the meeting, and he respectfully asked if his clan could study Leo's alchemy under him. Leo agreed fast, but only on his terms. The Tang clan could observe the 5th floor workshops, share knowledge, and stay useful as long as they caused no trouble. When Tang Tian admitted they still had no assignment, Leo realized he had forgotten them and quickly put the clan to work policing the West Slum and scouting talent. After Tang Tian left happy, Leo was left alone grumbling that his growing mall desperately needed a real manager and cashiers who could collect lifespan for him. His complaint was interrupted when Muniang returned through the portal and proudly announced that he had found the Earth Fate crystal. Leo rushed over, and Muniang proudly handed him the finger-sized crystal along with several giant savage tuna as souvenirs. The moment Leo stored the last crystal, Phase 2 of the Entity Fate Crystal quest finished and dumped a huge reward package into his hands. With fresh tickets in hand, Leo immediately opened the building gacha and rolled 10+1 without even pretending to pray first. When the result exploded into 5 gray, 3 green, 2 blue, and 1 rainbow pull, Leo knew he had hit something big. He ignored the lesser prizes and locked onto the ultra-rare reveal, a Tesseract time chamber that looked absurdly powerful for training inside the mall. On the mall's 4th floor, Leo cheerfully turns his new Tesseract time chamber into a paid training business and starts pricing how much desperate cultivators can afford. He studies the chamber's upgrade options and realizes its biggest draw is brutal time dilation, where 1 real day can become 100 days inside and scale even higher. Leo keeps spending resources, upgrading the mall and stuffing it with new alchemy, smithing, greenhouse, and gunsmith facilities until the whole complex hits level 15. The upgraded mall expands underground with fresh basement floors, and Leo immediately claims them as warehouses because nobody here even needs a parking lot. With the building work done, Leo rushes to his personal gacha, expecting treasure and talking himself up before the roll. The result looks miserable at first, just gray and blue balls with no gold at all, and Leo sours on the spot. He angrily complains that even fate crystals are not saving his luck, and the system answers with brutally low rare drop odds that shut him right up. Then Leo checks the actual pulls, sees 3 cashier mannequins and a warehouse manager, and his despair flips straight into gratitude because his staffing crisis is suddenly over. He summons the rare workers at once, and 4 pink female mannequins appear, 3 in maid outfits for cashier duty and 1 in a modern suit for warehouse management. The cashier mannequins silently show Leo their status screens, proving they can track lifespan balance and collect payments just like he hoped. Leo quickly assigns 2 maids to the supermarket and sends the 3rd to the time chamber, planning to finish their pricing rules before morning. Next he inspects the warehouse manager and learns she is a supervisor, not a laborer, with authority over warehouse access and a specialty for extending food expiry dates. Satisfied, Leo puts her over the mall's underground warehouses and orders all consumables, produce, immortal grasses, and pill ingredients moved into the shopping mall storage. After dispatching the rest of the ordinary gacha workers to their jobs, Leo turns to the last prize still waiting in his inventory, a guaranteed super rare ticket. He slams the summon button with full confidence, and this time the screen erupts in gold. Out steps Wataishu, a broadsword cultivator in white robes with the Life Sword Sect emblem, and Leo freezes when he realizes he has just summoned the legendary Sword Saint himself. The status screen reveals Wataishu was the first immortal of the Yen dynasty, founder of the Life Sword Sect, and a monster of a swordsman who later died in the Fate Stadium to the Fenrir deity Aniraku. Leo pities Huajiashan's people for worshipping a founder they probably do not even know is dead, but he also realizes this copy could be a huge asset. To avoid anyone underestimating him, Leo immediately upgrades Huataishu to level 9, pushing the summoned Sword Saint from Earth Immortal to True Immortal rank. The stronger Huataishu finally speaks, and his first words are a blunt, half-witted promise to kill werewolves on sight. Far away in space, a massive divine elf cube ship lifts off with deities and immortal elves aboard, starting a military trip toward the Yen dynasty planet. On the ground below, Simba watches friends and neighbors depart, and cannot shake the guilt sitting in his chest. Esther joins him and mistakes his mood for simple worry, but Simba quietly admits the force heading out may not survive what it is about to face. Simba explains he secretly checked the Fate Stadium rankings, found a mysterious ranker called Florida Man with redacted details, and now doubts even a deity expedition is enough to handle that side. Esther is surprised he never warned her mother, and Simba flatly says he was never asked. The couple quietly agree Esther's mother is overconfident, though that same softness is also the reason Simba's family is still alive. As the ship disappears into deep space, Simba privately decides that if anyone tries to drag him into this war, he will take Esther and run. Instead of losing the ship completely, Simba opens a hidden system map and tracks its jump to the outer edge of the star system as it turns toward Leo's planet. He pulls up Leo's status next, but almost everything is still hidden, leaving only the alias Florida Man, the location, and an old man portrait he cannot recognize. All Simba can do is hope Leo's system saves him, and he quietly wishes they might meet someday in the Fate Stadium if Leo survives this attack. Aboard the cube ship, the crew finishes post-teleport checks while the officers prepare for a cautious approach rather than a reckless assault. The captain, Ingolf Jack, is a terrifying 15-star deity strong enough to destroy planets, and his orders are clear: find Izan and capture her, or kill her if she resists. Ingolf asks about the Fenrir allies, learns their battleships will arrive in 2 days, and mocks them for still relying on outdated ships. Rather than spend his own strength first, Ingolf orders the ship to keep its distance and wait for the Fenrir vanguard to arrive. Back on Leo's planet, 3 guardians stand under the night sky and all notice the same incoming threat from space. Their brief banter turns silly for a second as bird, cat, and dog trade jabs, but the mood underneath is pure battle tension. Meow Meow cuts the jokes, confirms everyone is fully recharged, and tells them to wait until the enemy gets into range before they go all out. Then the system finally warns Leo directly that another player's forces are approaching his domain, and the penalties are ugly. The alerts spell out the damage: facility effects will be penalized, his automatons lose half their power, and invaders cannot be charged lifespan at all. Leo stares at the screen in fed-up disbelief and demands to know which enemy has decided to bring trouble to his life this time. Leo sends max-level Hua Taishu to guard the new Tesseract Time Chamber, and tells him to pose as Sword Saint Hua Taishu's twin brother while recruiting any swordsman he finds. Hua Taishu answers in broken, werewolf-obsessed speech, and Leo realizes the Sword Saint's memory and way of talking are still badly scrambled. Taking the mission seriously anyway, Hua Taishu teleports to the 4th floor and plants himself in front of the chamber like a silent bodyguard. The cashier mannequin is startled badly enough to fall over, but Hua Taishu calmly helps her up, which only makes her blush harder. While the mannequin circles him like she's fascinated, Hua Taishu quietly repeats a simple mantra to himself about being strong and killing werewolves for the domain. Elsewhere in the upgraded mall, Tang clan members and Life Sword sect alchemists rush out of their rooms and immediately notice the richer woodwork, smoother finish, and gentler yin-yang qi in the air. The visitors get so carried away praising the building materials and cultivation atmosphere that they start wishing Leo would let them stay inside the mall overnight. That excitement spikes when Tiger Swordsman spots Hua Taishu on patrol and blurts out that he looks exactly like the legendary Sword Saint from the old portraits. Hua Taishu only cares that Tiger Swordsman is a swordsman, so he immediately claims him as a trainee. Before Tiger Swordsman can answer, Hua Taishu grabs him by the pants and drags him straight into the time chamber. The cashier mannequin chases after them with a fresh signboard announcing the chamber's brutal price: 10 years of lifespan per day for each person. Tiger Swordsman tries to resist the bizarre arrangement, but against a true immortal's raw strength he still ends up as the chamber's first paying victim and student. News that Hua Taishu has appeared inside Leo's domain spreads fast, and Hua Jiashan leads a small group of interested cultivators toward the 4th floor to see him for themselves. The cashier mannequin blocks the crowd and lays out the chamber rules with signs: only 5 visitors at once, the same lifespan fee, and a current headcount already inside. Unlike the others, Hua Jiashan and another visitor do not hesitate and pay with their lifespan on the spot so they can meet the supposed Sword Saint. Inside, Hua Jiashan and another visitor step into a stark white training world filled with gym equipment, small rooms, dummies, and an altar that floods the space with elemental chi. Hua Taishu greets the newcomers with the same blunt invitation he gave Tiger Swordsman: come here and get stronger under his training. Hua Jiashan carefully asks if this young-looking man is really related to Sword Saint Hua Taishu, still struggling to believe what he's seeing. Hua Taishu bluntly declares that he is the real Sword Saint and even calls himself Hua Jiashan's grandfather, which leaves Hua Jiashan reeling. Hua Jiashan can only stammer that his ancestors should be over 2,000 years old, because the man in front of him looks far too young to accept. Another visitor steps in to restore order and bows deeply to Hua Taishu as his ancestor, while Hua Jiashan watches from the side. Hua Taishu dismisses the bowing visitor as a useless non-swordsman and decides the fix is simple: he will train him in the sword too, alarming Hua Jiashan while Tiger Swordsman sees the disaster coming. Without giving anyone time to refuse, Hua Taishu unleashes his sword domain and turns the blank chamber into a graveyard of a million rising blades. Hua Taishu grabs a sword and charges, and Hua Jiashan realizes too late that everyone inside is trapped for a 500-day nightmare of sword training. After that, Leo's resource chain keeps rolling as hauling teams unload immortalium ingots into storage and then head back out for more. Warehouse mannequins and the new manager keep the whole process flowing without Leo's direct supervision, moving the ingots straight to the mall's underground storage. Leo has already left behind barrels of urine and a bucket of saliva, so the mannequins dip every black ingot into them and turn the metal white as it upgrades. Once enough white ingots pile up, workshop mannequins collect them, and the new blacksmith shops begin forging weapons non-stop. Leo waits by the new blacksmiths until they finish their first test weapon, a white broadsword made from the strange upgraded metal. A system notice names it the broadsword of goddess blood, and Leo is amused that the material's name keeps mutating at every stage of processing. Even though Leo swings the sword casually and without chi, the blade still carves deep damage into them all around him. The store's auto-repair starts patching the damage at once, but the test leaves Leo wanting a real expert who can tell him exactly how good this weapon is. He briefly thinks of Hua Jiashan and Hua Taishu, but one is still too weak to judge the sword and the other is too unreliable to hold a normal conversation. That leaves Izen's people, so Leo heads back to the battle bus to find someone with real experience. In the bus lobby, Leo finds Mark and Beatrice relaxing over snacks after finishing another huge round of gun knowledge training. Leo shows them the broadsword and asks for a straight evaluation, which makes Mark light up immediately. Mark calls Leo Your Majesty and enthusiastically praises the sword, forcing Leo to process that marriage to Izen would make him their emperor. Beatrice opens her abyssal gaze, scans the sword, and calmly identifies it as the kind of weapon used to dismantle gods' souls. She recognizes the scent of goddess blood in the metal and correctly guesses the weapon was forged from milkium or something very close to it. When Leo asks how she knows that, Beatrice reveals she once studied at a royal academy on another planet and used to own one of these swords herself. Beatrice explains that milkium weapons were elite anti-divine tools for gifted young immortals, powerful enough to kill gods and cancel their abilities, which is why divine elves tightly controlled them. After talking far more than usual, Beatrice cuts herself off in quiet exhaustion, and Leo unexpectedly relates to her habit of barely speaking. Leo checks on their cultivation progress, and Mark proudly says the pills have already pushed him to true immortal stage, just one step short of becoming a god. Since Mark is the swordsman here, Leo simply gives him the new anti-god broadsword. Then Leo puts Beatrice in charge of collecting every broadsword from the blacksmiths and distributing them to Izen's people first. When Mark asks how many Leo can make, Leo casually says as many as he wants, and both undead veterans are stunned by how absurdly rich he is in this material. Leo sends them off with one more plan: wait for the new guns too, because he intends to arm Izen's side with both blades and firearms. After Leo leaves to check on his wife, Mark and Beatrice share a bright look and quietly agree that he has been unexpectedly kind to them. Following Leo's order, Mark and Beatrice visit the blacksmiths, gather the fresh broadswords, and start handing them out to Izen's subordinates. The rollout immediately hits a practical problem, because most of those subordinates are not sword users and hand the broadswords back. Instead, they ask for weapons they actually know how to use, like staffs, canes, scythes, and spears. Beatrice takes over as their liaison and returns to the workshop to request custom weapon production for each fighter. The automatons reject the request at first because Beatrice is not their master, so the new workshop manager has to step in and authorize the change. With that approval in place, the blacksmiths stop mass-producing swords and smoothly switch to crafting the customized weapons Izen's people actually need. Back in the battle bus bedroom, Leo watches sleeping Izen quietly mature from their night together and smirks that he can no longer tease her for being flat. Even while admiring her, Leo stays focused on the coming fight and realizes he still needs Izen's blood to make more Floridian Dantian pills. Since Izen is still out cold, Leo leaves her to rest and heads to the mall's busy 5th floor to solve the pill shortage himself first. Inside the empty alchemy factory, Leo checks the status panel and confirms the machines are ready but not producing anything yet. To feed the recipe, Leo casually fills a bucket with his own blood and even tears off a chunk of flesh, trusting his monstrous regeneration to patch him back up at once. After the workers bring over the last 12 Cayman cores, Leo orders the factory to mass-produce Floridian Dantian pills and stops caring about quality, as long as the batch is huge. The factory shocks him by showing a 24-hour completion time, and Leo finally understands the workshops are for prototypes while factories are for real mass production. Riding that momentum, Leo sweeps through his alchemy workshops, collects finished pills, and starts every old recipe he had left gathering dust. He even gambles on a pill of youth recipe, wondering if his own blood still qualifies as Virgin Sage's blood after sleeping with Izen. When the workshop accepts his blood and Taxi's tears without complaint, Leo gets a new idea and rushes back to test whether Izen's blood still works too. Back in the bedroom, Leo finds Izen awake at last, still sleepy but now wrapped in a strangely holy beauty that makes her look and even smell dangerously tempting. The moment he says good morning, Izen remembers last night, turns bright red, and hides behind a pillow while Leo finds the whole thing adorable. Leo keeps teasing her, but Izen quietly leans into him anyway, scratching and biting him just hard enough to leave a mark now that she's stronger. Then Leo asks the absurd question on his mind: if his blood still passed the recipe test, are they somehow still counted as virgins for alchemy too? Izen stares at him like he's broken, and Leo proudly explains that his blood still worked as Virgin Sage's blood, so now he wants to test hers as Virginine blood. Without giving her much room to protest, Leo drags Izen into a full pampering routine and happily bathes, dries, dresses, and combs his blushing wife himself. At the alchemy floor, Leo uses both their blood in a workshop and the cauldron immediately confirms that the true death poison pill recipe still works. Izen asks what he is even making, and Leo casually admits he has no idea what the poison pill does and just wants to see the recipe through. With the blood test settled, Leo decides it is finally time to teach Izen something more practical and leads her straight to the gunsmith workshop. The mannequin workers salute and hand Leo a fresh prototype, and he immediately realizes they have built a modern M16. When the system offers a dirt-cheap lifespan upgrade, Leo maxes the rifle on the spot and turns it into a level 15 monster weapon. The upgraded M16 exhales black smoke, lets out a faint howl, and even grows a floating spirit eye that blinks at Leo before sizing up Izan too. Leo takes that as approval, tells Izan the rifle recognizes her, and places the living weapon into her hands as her new personal gun. Izan can barely make sense of the strange weapon, so Leo demonstrates the detachable magazine and explains that this gun can dump 30 rounds in one burst if she holds the trigger. The lesson only makes Izan more excited, and she bolts outside with the rifle, eager to test it on the alligators immediately. Watching his wife fly off with a full-auto spirit rifle, Leo can only sigh that she might be turning into one of his kind after all. Her test run becomes a disaster-sized spectacle over the canyon river, where black lightning and gunfire tear the sky apart and blast out a crater so huge the river turns it into a lake. The commotion terrifies Kat so badly that she runs home in tears, climbs onto the pylon tower, and refuses to come back down. A day later, Hua Taishu finally lets Hua Jishan, Tiger Swordsman, and Tang Xian out of the time chamber after 500 days of non-stop torture training. The gains are obvious at a glance. Hua Jishan moves like a blade, Tiger Swordsman looks younger and tougher, and Tang Xian now strides with green fire and full earth celestial immortal pressure. Hua Taishu cheerfully invites them back for more, but the three survivors are instantly united in one thing: they would rather die than repeat that hell again. Bonded by shared trauma and starving for real food, the trio heads downstairs and decides to try the new Florida fried chicken restaurant inside the mall. Once they see the menus and smell the fryer, all three lose what little restraint they had left and start ordering like monsters. Tang Xian demands a party bucket, Hua Jiashan orders the same, and Tiger Swordsman goes even further until the other two can only stare at him. Tiger Swordsman proudly slips into Hua Taishu's caveman speech about bulking and getting stronger, which only makes his friends cover their faces in defeat. When the food arrives, the three trained half-dead elders devour everything in sight and march out stuffed and happy, never realizing what meat they actually just ate. News of the trio's growth spreads fast, and soon curious visitors gather around the time chamber to ask Hua Taishu what that training room can do. Jin Yong comes looking for Tang Xian, but after seeing the results himself, he ends up asking Hua Taishu if he can train there too. Hua Taishu decides Jin Yong is weak, grabs him by the collar on the spot, and drags him into the chamber while promising to make him stronger whether he likes it or not. Watching that madness somehow inspires a few Life Sword sect disciples to volunteer too, just in time for Hua Taishu to welcome them into his next round of Spartan hell. Rumors rippled through Leo's domain that the fourth floor facility could trade 10 years of lifespan for a secret training realm, and the first men who tried it came back stronger. The gossip split in two directions fast, because some people swore the real miracle came from Leo's expensive fried chicken instead. By the next day, the mall was packed with both kinds of visitors, one crowd chasing food and the other rushing for the fourth floor chamber. Among the diners, Gao Yen finally came out of seclusion, and Wu Bai dragged him here to relax while keeping an eye on his unstable post-breakthrough state. Gao Yen's progress had jumped all the way to quasi-immortal, which left even Wu Bai worried that the breakthrough had happened too fast. Wu Bai confidently ordered his favorite heavyset, while Gao Yen sat there so blankly that his master had to suggest the cheaper beginner meal for him. Gao Yen just nodded and drifted off again, because his mind was still stuck in that empty post-seclusion haze cultivators sometimes suffer. Around them, the whole food area was thriving, with mannequins working the counters and curious locals swarming every stall in the court. Watching the crowd, Wu Bai quietly marveled at how Leo's once forest domain had turned into something almost unrecognizable. The smell of hot fried chicken finally snapped Gao Yen awake the moment their food hit the table. Looking at the food, Gao Yen blurted out KFC from a memory he did not understand. When Gao Yen called it fast food and even junk food, Wu Bai got personally offended and tried to steal the meal off his plate. The first bite unlocked the taste for him completely, and Gao Yen suddenly devoured the whole tray with practiced speed. After finishing everything, Gao Yen grumbled that the meal was missing soda, Pepsi, and Coke, which only made Wu Bai more confused. Gao Yen admitted he had never eaten anything like this before, so the strange knowledge had to be coming from Leo's Floridian Dantian pill. The moment Wu Bai heard the pill's name, he wanted one for himself, and the nearby disciples quietly memorized it too. Elsewhere on the fourth floor, Dong Fong Mei, Sun Wan, Han Hao, Han Meng, and Tang Tian gathered outside the time chamber after hearing how effective it was. Dong Fong Mei joked that there were too many of them for the available space, and Sun Wan politely offered to give up her turn for her master. Sun Wan then decided to wait and come back with Yao Chi Chi tomorrow, which instantly made the competition for spots easier. Tang Tian switched the mood by teasing Dong Fong Mei about secretly marrying Hua Jiashan without inviting her own mentor. Dong Fong Mei answered by whacking Tang Tian's but with a paper fan, showing their old teacher-disciple dynamic had not changed at all. Between laughs, Dong Fong Mei said the ceremony had not happened yet and would probably wait until after Leo's wedding. When Tang Tian asked if Leo's bride was the long-haired woman, Dong Fong Mei confirmed it was Izan and revealed she was a celestial emperor. That immortal rank title stunned Tang Tian, and the bystanders listening nearby became even more fascinated by Leo and Izan. Later that afternoon, the chamber finally opened and Hua Taishu walked out with Jin Yong and 3 other young survivors who all looked wrecked. Despite the awful condition they were in, the results were brutal and effective, because Jin Yong had been pushed all the way into quasi-immortal. Tang Tian rushed to support his disciple and demanded to know what kind of madness had happened inside. Jin Yong could barely explain it, and just mumbled that hard training made him strong, sounding worryingly like Hua Taishu already. Hua Taishu beamed, pointed right at Tang Tian, and invited him in for the same treatment with terrifying enthusiasm. Tang Tian had come prepared, so he paid 10 years of lifespan on the spot and accepted the invitation anyway. Han Hao, Han Meng, and Dong Fang Mei immediately followed, and Hua Taishu happily herded all of them into the chamber before anyone could rethink it. As the doors shut behind them, one survivor looked after the elders with the pity of a man who had already seen hell. Then Jin Yong and the others tried to speak normally again and realized Hua Taishu's training had damaged their grammar along with their brains. The spectators could only stare, because the chamber was clearly making people stronger while also turning them stupid. Even with invaders looming somewhere beyond the horizon, Leo settled into a calmer routine now that the cashiers were collecting lifespan for him. By day, Leo split his time between mushroom work and relentless combat training inside his Dantian universe against powerful allies like Beatrice, Mark, Ivy, Hua Taishu, and Sierra. At night, Leo and Izan stayed together in private, but this time he turned the evening into a serious lesson on how much of her own necromancy she still did not understand. Izan proudly declared she had mastered 5 branches of necromancy, and Leo immediately challenged her by pointing out 2 more she did not even believe existed. When Izan mocked the idea of necromantic healing, Leo answered by raising white smoke of yang qi at his fingertip like proof in her face. Izan thought the technique looked like holy magic that should hurt the undead, but Leo calmly told her she was wrong. To prove it, Leo summoned out a dead 4-armed mutant and resurrected it right in the room, stunning Izan with her own people's art used by someone else. Leo snapped the zombie's legs with a mix of puppeteering and attack magic just to show Izan that she had misclassified the art from the start. Then he sent the white smoke into the broken bones and repaired the undead body in seconds, blowing up everything Izan thought she knew about necromancy. Leo explained that this was not holy healing at all, but direct repair through yang qi and life force control, and he made it clear she needed to listen carefully. The lesson lasted the whole night, and by the end Izan was looking at Leo with odd eyes like he had just opened a hidden world for her. Outside the room, Ivy had been eavesdropping as usual, but hearing Leo teach Izan forbidden clan arts left even her badly rattled. As Ivy turned the mystery over in her head, she reached a private conclusion that Leo was not human at all, and somehow that only made him more desirable to her. At the same time, far away, Murong-chi personally led a flying ship from the joyous Yin-Yang sect toward Leo's territory with a huge escort. On the way, his people stopped at ruined Cauliflower City, cleaned out leftover rogue cultivators, and stripped the area for spatial rings before moving on. Murong-chi had brought 1,000 beautiful young female disciples as gifts, but in his real plan they were also bait and long-term spies. He expected Leo himself might not take the women, but he could still plant them among Leo's unmarried subordinates and turn marriages into an intelligence network. The sect reached Leo's domain at night, and Murong-chi carefully landed east of the Tang clan manor instead of barging straight into the floating island. Seeing the Tang clan's protected manor, Murong-chi smirked and admitted they had been smarter than him to hide under Leo's shelter first. Instead of visiting Leo at night, Murong-chi shamelessly chose the easier target first and asked the Tang clan to feed and house his whole entourage. The guards were already overwhelmed by the scale of his demand, and Murong-chi pressed harder by pointing out all the women and children he expected them to pity. Before the guards could decide, the pink-eyed girls looked at them and quietly emptied their minds with charm. With the gate charmed open, the girls slipped into the manor and immediately started ensnaring servants and clansmen inside. By the time Tang Xian arrived, half the intruders were already inside, taking rooms and turning his own household against itself. Tang Xian stormed to the front gate and called Murong-chi exactly what he was, the most shameless freeloader alive. Murong-chi tried to size him up and froze when he realized Tang Xian was no longer quasi-immortal, but a true immortal now. Tang Xian made sure the point landed by bragging that he had already stepped beyond the level of men like Situ Nantian, Ouyang Zi, and Yan Xiang. Murong-chi instantly understood he had lost his leverage, because Tang Xian had grown too strong for him to bully anymore. Tang Xian pressed the advantage and ordered Murong-chi to drag his vixens off Tang property before things turned ugly. This time Murong-chi did not fight back, and he recalled his disciples outside rather than risk a clash he might lose. As soon as everyone was out, Tang Xian slammed the gates shut and locked his manor down again. Shut out and annoyed, Murong-chi decided to spend the night on his ship and seek Leo properly in the morning instead. His dual cultivators were visibly disappointed, because they had failed to drain life force from the local men and had to leave hungry in more ways than one. None of Murong-chi's people realized they had already entered Leo's territory without paying local taxes, but somebody above them absolutely noticed. From the pylon tower, a pair of hungry red eyes watched the newcomers and drooled at the thought of collecting what they owed. The next morning, Murongchi led his joyous Yin-Yang sect disciples into Leo's domain, and immediately stepped onto a strangely modern highway instead of a normal sect path. One breath of the rich Yin-Yang left the whole group dazed and euphoric, and they instantly fell in love with the place. When they spotted the tall apartment buildings where local disciples lived, the girls started gushing over them like they had discovered a new paradise. Murongchi had to drag their attention back to the real goal and remind them they were here to meet the lord of this domain, not daydream on the road. A little farther in, they noticed black lumber cabins belching white smoke and white-coated workers carrying alchemy materials, which made the sect girls even more convinced this territory was loaded with resources. Then they found fenced 3-story patio houses beside gardens, and the girls were almost ready to squeal at how rich the local residents seemed. One of those doors opened, and Gao Yen walked out dressed like a modern office worker, instantly stealing every girl's attention. The 100-plus girls practically drooled over Gao Yen on sight, and started openly throwing themselves at him. Gao Yen shut them down politely, saying he was late for work and already had a lover. Thora slipped out of Gao Yen's shadow and silently flipped the rivals off, jealous and smug even though none of the girls could see her. Murongchi stopped gawking at Gao Yen's looks and finally sensed the real shock. This young man was already at the same cultivation level as him. When Murongchi asked his age, Gao Yen casually said he was only about 17, which hit the sect master even harder. Murongchi also noticed Thora's spirit body and realized Gao Yan's Dao avatar felt even stronger than he was, which made this place suddenly much more dangerous. Trying to recover, Murongchi asked who had awakened Gao Yan's talent, and Gao Yan pointed him toward Lord Florida Man at the general store and parking lot farther down the road. Murongchi made one more move and openly offered his disciples as possible concubines or servants, hoping Gao Yan might take the bait. Gao Yan refused immediately and said one lover was enough because he wanted to focus on cultivation and his work here. After Gao Yan flew off to the southern farms, Murongchi admitted to himself that his original plan was failing and that Florida Man would need a more careful approach. Before the group could move again, Cat dropped in front of them in her monstrous girl form and chirped her usual demand for Nam Nam. Murongchi tried to ask what Nam Nam even meant, but the locals ignored the scene because they were already used to Cat shaking down newcomers. Because they still did not understand her, Cat's mood flipped from cute to murderous, and she raised her tentacles to crush the whole group. At the last second, Wu Bai kicked his door open, partly covered by simple modest cloth and furious, and yelled that the alarm was off so these people were not food. Cat instantly deflated into a sulk, and a stone tentacle from above lowered a giant thunder caiman corpse to placate her before she happily bounced away with her prize. Wu Bai glanced at the crowd of women, sneered that 3D pigs were disgusting, and slammed his doors shut like this madness was perfectly normal. Murongchi and his people just stood there trying to process the place, and all he could do was mentally scream about what kind of territory he had walked into. From the shopping mall rooftop, Yao Chichi watched the whole disaster and quietly welcomed the old sect master to Florida. The group finally reached the front of the shopping mall and stopped again, stunned by the giant building and the glass elevator leading up to the flying island. They were so distracted by the architecture that they barely noticed commoners already going in and out like this impossible place was just part of daily life. Then the smell of fried chicken drifted out of the mall and wrecked the group's self-control, because most of them had been living on pills instead of real food. Murongchi wanted to eat too, but he forced everyone to keep moving before his mission dissolved into a fried food detour. Next to the mall, they found a wall-less parking structure guarded by handsome long-haired men and watched over by teams of elves and white-haired residents on every floor. As night shift workers flew in from above and passed rooftop inspections before entering their RV homes, Murongchi realized this had to be the place Gao Yan mentioned. Murongchi stepped up and formally asked one of the guards to announce that the joyous Yin-Yang sect master wanted an audience with their leader. The guard looked him over with open disdain, and when Murongchi sensed the others back, he realized with a jolt that even the gatekeepers here were immortals. That discovery drained all his confidence at once, because if immortals were only the guards, Florida Man himself had to be far beyond normal sense. One Death Knight finally agreed to relay the message and told Murongchi to wait there. Inside their room, Leo and Izan were already exhausted from staying up all night, so they stripped down, crawled into bed together, and passed out immediately. Ivy slipped in after they fell asleep, quietly collected their used clothes, set out fresh ones, and tucked the blanket properly over her sleeping masters. After leaving the room, Ivy sat guard outside and meditated on the Floridian Dantian pill, gaining months of gun training memories and steadily rising in strength. A Death Knight came to the bus to report that a large human group wanted to meet the Holy One, and the nearby liches turned to Ivy for the answer. Ivy calmly said Leo was unavailable and told them to send the visitors away until afternoon because he and Izan were resting after a long night of cultivation. The liches instantly took that the wrong way and walked out wearing knowing grins, convinced the husband and wife had spent the whole night getting intimate. By the time the message reached the gate, it had turned into a blunt announcement that Florida Man was exhausted from intense sex and not taking guests. The whole area went awkwardly silent, but Murongchi suddenly lit up because this rumor made Florida Man seem less like a saint and more like a man with a weakness he could exploit. Murongchi immediately tried again, offering 1,000 dual-cultivating maidens as a goodwill gift for Leo's supposed tastes. That earned him nothing except unified disgust, and the guard flatly ordered him to take his so-called gifts away and come back later. But the damage was already done, because disciples who overheard the message started whispering that Lord Florida Man had slept with someone. When the gossip reached two horse-like beast companions, they instantly blew it up into excited chatter about Leo and Izan smashing. Sierra overheard them, misunderstood everything even worse, and started wondering out loud whether Leo was somehow milking Izan instead. The beasts passed Sierra's nonsense to other listeners, and the rumor mutated again until people were seriously asking whether Izan even had boobs and milk. Up on the flying island, Meow Meow and Mooniang watched the crowd below, and could only brace themselves for how angry Leo would be when the rumor reached him. By then it was already too late to fix anything, and the rumor kept spreading through the domain in weirder and weirder forms. After resting on the bus, Izan heads back to the White Tree Array, and Leo wakes up ready to chase fresh quests. Leo checks the Fate Crystal quest and sees Phase 3 is only half done, with ugly tasks like making a true Fate Crystal, surviving another player, and invading a home planet. Even so, Leo notices the mall upgrade unlocked a whole batch of new buildings, and his mood jumps immediately. He quickly makes room behind the shopping mall, moving old granaries away from the empty land near Gao Yan and Wu Bai's houses. With the land cleared, Leo drops in new houses and an apartment, and pushes them straight to level 15. Leo keeps expanding the domain, adding more warehouses and granaries, stretching new farms out from the Southern Agriculture District, and placing 2 alchemy workshops on the mall's 5th floor. Then he installs the real prizes inside the mall's 4th floor, a casino, a boot camp, and a tavern right beside the time chamber. From the outside the rooms still look small, but after the upgrades their interiors stretch wide enough to host crowds comfortably. The price still stings, but Leo can shrug it off now because his mall is booming with migrants and rich Tang clan buyers. Just as Leo is enjoying his city builder mood, a Death Knight interrupts with news that a quasi-immortal has arrived with many young mortals as tribute. Hearing the word tribute, Leo perks up and hurries over, already wondering what kind of customer just arrived. Outside the store, Murong Chi and his people wait for hours without complaint because Leo's domain is packed with better Yin-Yang Chi than the mystic realms they know. A Death Knight loudly announces Leo as the ruler here, and even Murong Chi is forced to kneel because the immortal guards leave him no room to resist. Leo is still awkward with that royal treatment, so he stiffly asks whether Murong Chi came to settle here or shop. Murong Chi probes Leo's aura, finds it unreadable, and convinces himself this calm soul formation look must be a hidden expert's disguise. Murong Chi introduces himself as the joyous Yin-Yang sect master and says he came to honor the new lord with a gift. Then Murong Chi proudly reveals the tribute, 1,000 pretty disciples he offers as servants, houseworkers, and bed companions. Leo cuts him off cold and rejects the whole tribute on the spot, saying his place does not welcome underage prostitutes. Murong Chi is stunned because the rumors painted Leo as a man of pleasure, so this rejection lands like a public slap. Leo sizes the girls up and points out exactly what bothers him: the skimpy clothes, heavy makeup, cheap perfume, and the look of girls pushed into prostitution. He gets even harsher and tells them that if they want work here, they need proper clothes, proper bathing, and no underage girls in the lineup. Murong Chi finally gets what Leo means, because his northern sect barely bathes, and even the perfume cannot hide the stable-like smell. Trying to save face, Murong Chi activates a water domain technique and rinses his whole group in one sweep. The quick rinse only half fixes the problem, and Leo's attention drifts to a new business idea for a public bathhouse. Leo sends them away for now and says they can come back only after the girls are adults, and everyone has taken a proper bath. Once Leo leaves, Murong Chi is furious enough to imagine killing him if not for the immortal guards. He orders the entire sect group back to their ship, and the disciples leave disappointed without even getting to shop. On the way out, Tang Xian openly mocks Murong Chi for getting kicked out, and Murong Chi leaves with one more grudge burning in his chest. Far out in space, 2 artificial stars emerge from a white wormhole and drift toward the elves' cubic warship. Passengers stream from the stars into the cube ship, bringing heavy reinforcements for the next move against Leo's planet. Inside the warship, Captain Ingoff Jack receives 2 werewolf overlords, Milo and Max, who report in with full respect despite being stronger than him. Jack lays out the mission plainly: seize Princess Izan, kill her followers, and learn how she removed the undead curse. The hologram zooms down to Florida Domain, where one detail stands out immediately: the portal is active non-stop. Jack warns them that Florida Domain has 3 guardian statues with at least deity-level power, but Max brushes that off as easy prey. Jack immediately shuts that bravado down by showing the black-winged angel statue, and the werewolves clearly recognize the face. He explains the danger: if that statue really points to Overlord Mao and his ties to Overlord Kishin, a direct assault could drag them into a much bigger war. So Jack's strategy is careful avoidance, and the 2 overlords can only swallow their dislike and listen. Back near Leo's side, Meow Meow watches the new enemy stars from his black-winged angel statue body and quietly notes that they are still out of range. Mooniang wants to bring Leo over so they can fight at full strength, but Meow Meow says they may not need to move yet. What really catches Meow Meow's eye is a third star moving wildly and impossibly fast straight toward their system. He orders Mooniang to call Kitten, because he realizes an old enemy may have finally found them. The moment Mooniang understands who it is, his mood flips too, because this is the crook who stole the prototype body meant for their master. Meow Meow grips his sword and swears revenge, blaming that stolen body for trapping their master in an incomplete vessel for 50,000 years and costing him ascension. Leo checks his factories and sees the alchemy line churning out Floridian Dantian pills and elemental pills at a ridiculous pace. Because he promised Eazen's people first access, Leo keeps the Floridian pills reserved for her undead subordinates instead of selling them yet. He moves on to the Idle Land Vehicle Factory, now finally stocked with Immortalium and Goddess Milkium and ready for its first build. The factory menu shows only basic vehicles for now, so Leo picks the cheapest option, a beginner-friendly scooter, to test the system. The factory starts by feeding in quarry stones and special ingots, and the whole line roars to life around him. Leo watches, fascinated, as the machines refine the stone into metal-like ingots and sort every piece with eerie precision. The biggest ingot drops into a mercury-like pool and comes back out transformed into the bare frame of a scooter. Then black immortalium and white milkium liquid coat the frame like living metal, and Leo gets completely absorbed in the process. After staring for 10 minutes like he is watching a perfect factory video, Leo snaps out of it and checks the build timer. An hour later, the first scooter is finished, and Leo happily drags out the humble chrome gray bike to test it himself. The engine stays dead without fuel, so Leo immediately decides to upgrade the scooter into a cheap-powered machine instead of a gas one. When he sees the upgrade cost is absurdly cheap for self-made items, Leo starts thinking like a merchant instead of just a tinkerer. He settles on a plan to test several versions later, sell a cheaper basic model, and charge extra for upgrades. Once he takes the finished scooter outside, Leo blasts down the road laughing and heads toward the Tang Clan district for a real test run. When the road gets crowded, Leo flips the controls and casually reveals that the scooter can fly. High over the district, Leo starts belting out a whole new world by himself, including the female parts, and his terrible singing turns the whole flight into a public disaster. People on the ground can only stare, suffer, and yell for him to stop as his voice physically hurts their ears. Even through the noise, cultivators realize this is not a flying sword at all but some completely new kind of personal flying vehicle. Tang Xian studies the machine with a headache from the singing, but he still has to admit Leo may have invented a clever new flying craft. The younger Tang Clan members ignore the singing and start dreaming about owning one themselves, because this thing looks much easier to use than a flying sword. After the test ride, Leo returns to the shopping mall and boldly puts the first premium scooter on display for 1,500 YOL beside Chang Chang's statue. A huge crowd forms around the scooter, but most people can only gawk because the price is hopelessly out of reach for ordinary commoners and weak cultivators. The crowd starts naming the few elites who might actually afford it, like Tang Xian or Gao Yan, while everyone else is left dreaming. Instead of stopping there, Leo brings out a second scooter for another spin and makes the crowd nervously brace for another round of awful singing. After a quick test drive, he parks the second scooter beside the first and sets up a new sign with a much lower price. The new board reveals a standard edition for just 300 YOL, and that sudden price drop instantly changes the crowd's mood. But their excitement cools when they notice the standard model only travels on land, which makes some people dismiss it as just an expensive two-wheeled carriage. Everything flips again when they spot one line on the sign saying the scooter is indestructible. Leo explains that he already tested it, and he seriously doubts even immortals or gods could damage the engine or frame. A brave cultivator touches the scooter to test it, and the bike instantly answers with a warning shockwave that blasts him away. Leo calmly adds that the first warning is mercy, because if a thief tries again, the scooter will kill them. That anti-theft promise hits hard with the weak and vulnerable, because to merchants and commoners this is suddenly more than a vehicle, it is protection. One merchant group steps forward and asks if they can combine their lifespan payments to buy a single scooter together. Leo agrees immediately, and the merchants are overjoyed because pooling 10 years each finally makes the standard scooter affordable. He takes their lifespan, hands over the keys, and personally teaches them how to start and drive their new scooter. Watching that sale, other traders suddenly understand the scooter's real value for long-distance travel, cargo, and surviving robber attacks. Meanwhile, the local cultivators stop dismissing the bikes and start eyeing the first premium model much more seriously. Hearing all that talk, Leo walks back to the first scooter and rewrites its sign to show the true specs of the Level 15 Performance Edition. The new sign reveals absurd range, extreme speed, cheap-powered refueling, flight, and built-in anti-immortal weapons and a barrier. When someone asks what anti-immortal saw blades even means, Leo decides to show them instead of explaining it nicely. He flips the switch, and 4 robotic arms burst out from the scooter with giant spinning white saw blades on the ends. The blades were around searching for targets, and the spectators panic hard enough to shove each other out of danger. Leo powers the weapons down and pitches them like a practical travel feature for a dangerous world, which somehow only makes the scooter more tempting. Then he activates the protection barrier, wrapping the scooter in a blue shield and inviting anyone brave enough to test it. No ordinary person dares move until Tang Xian steps out of the crowd and volunteers to hit the barrier himself. Freshly ascended to Earth's celestial immortal, Tang Xian wants a real measure of his power, and Leo's scooter gives him the perfect target. Tang Xian throws a full straight punch into the shield, but all he gets is a ripple across the barrier and nothing more. That one failed punch stuns the whole mall, because even a new immortal cannot crack this scooter's defense. Sensing the room turn hungry, Leo announces that more bikes are coming every hour and that customers can place custom orders in advance. The promise of mass production makes everyone swallow hard, and even Tang Xian stops pretending to be detached. Tang Xian finally gives in on the spot and bluntly claims the very bike Leo is riding for himself. A hostile fleet of artificial stars and a cubic warship slips toward Leo's planet, and shuttle pods start dropping to claim landing zones for the invasion. On the ground, Overlord Milo and his disguised Fenrir troops land at ruined Cauliflower City, hide their shuttle pods, and prepare the invasion from inside human skins. Milo mocks the planet's filthy thin chi, convinced this new Earth world will be easy prey. Then Milo gives the real mission away: avoid clashing with Overlord Mao if possible, but if Mao comes for Princess Izan, kill her first and blame him for it. His men agree without hesitation, treating Izan's death and a false accusation against Mao like a simple cleanup job. A voice suddenly hijacks every werewolf's transmission and catches them plotting in real time. The speaker is Overlord Mao, and just hearing that name turns Milo and his troops pale with terror. Mao tears into them for planning murder and a frame up behind his back, and Milo instantly drops into panicked apology mode. Instead of calming down, Mao orders them to call every unit in the system and wipe the whole planet clean. The order chills them, but it also matches what they wanted anyway, so Milo obeys and relays the attack command to the fleet. Aboard the enemy flagship, Ingolf Jack receives Milo's report, and the bridge shifts from infiltration to full planetary assault. Their answer is brutal. The cubic warship begins charging a planetary core evaporator aimed straight at Leo's world. On the flying island, Miao Miao, Muniang, and the Wolf Guardian statue feel the planet killer charging and scramble to answer it with their own formation. The Guardians gather local chi and Leo's power even faster than the flagship can charge, then unleash a massive rainbow lightning beam. The cubic ship panics and fires early, but its black lightning cannon loses the clash almost instantly. The rainbow beam smashes through the flagship's barrier and bores a 3-kilometer hole straight through the ship. Crew, wreckage, and loose machinery spill into space, and weaker immortals flail helplessly while stronger ones calmly fly toward nearby artificial stars. Even that isn't enough to stop the fleet, because the flagship heals like a living thing and repairs the gaping hole within a minute. Then the real invasion begins, with swarms of battleships and tens of thousands of jets pouring out of the motherships and artificial stars. Miao Miao instantly splits the defense plan, sending the other Guardians after the smaller ships and artificial stars while he goes for the flagship and Mao himself. While ordinary people in Florida Domain are still living normally, a war between top-tier entities has already exploded above them. Back in Florida Domain, Leo, Izan, and the revived undead all feel the sky and chi twist, and Leo looks up hard enough to spot the invading fleet beyond the star system. Leo's first instinct is to fly up and hit them himself, but Miao Miao cuts him through a mental message and stops him cold. Miao Miao warns that Leo's real job is to protect the shopping mall, because if the domain core building collapses during this war, his whole system gets erased. That ugly rule changes everything, and Leo gives up the idea of chasing the fleet into space. A domain-wide siren blares as Leo announces the invasion, orders civilians into the mall for shelter, and calls every fighter and employee to the rooftop with weapons. Leo personally shoves the evacuation into motion, sending workers and non-combatants down through staff routes toward the deepest underground floors. Leo's fighters answer the call fast, with Gao Yen, Jin Yong, Hua Jiushan, Han Meng, Han Hao, and other trained defenders gathering on the rooftop for battle. At the same time, Leo's defenders split into layers, with Taxi's team holding the flying island and Izan's undead unit taking the parking structure as a second immortal line. The slum residents cannot even see the space war yet, but they trust Leo enough to keep moving into the mall anyway. More than 10,000 people pack into the dim B5 underground level, and Leo opens a portal to an empty warehouse just to keep the hot bunker breathable. Before Leo can finish managing the shelter, the sky flashes bright as enemy craft start dropping toward his domain like a storm of shooting stars. Leo reaches for his pistol, but Taxi's group attacks first from the flying island. On the flying island, Taxi's team shifts into humanoid battle forms, grabs M16 rifles, and opens up on the descending jets in a frantic anti-air burst. They do blow some of the jets apart, but far too many survive, break formation, and start circling the domain for a counterattack. One enemy shot proves how dangerous the swarm is when it slams into Taxi's barrier, breaks it in a single crack, and tears across his shoulder. The hit knocks Taxi back into Thunder Unicorn form and even strips away his chi control, which tells Leo this invasion is no joke. So Leo switches tactics, pulls out the Floridian staff, dumps out the purple bones of dead mauled tribesmen, and calls their ancestors to answer his necromancy. Only about 3,000 of the 10,000 bones answer the call, rising into full skeleton soldiers while the rest stay dead and silent. Leo immediately strengthens the new army with the Dark Blessing, turning the purple skeletons black, larger, and strong enough to feel like true immortals. With one order from Leo, the skeleton army launches into the sky and starts ripping fighter jets apart with bare hands. They crush hundreds of jets fast, but the unmanned swarm answers with bullets and beams that blast 1,000 skeletons into pieces. Leo refuses to let his dead troops die twice, expanding a death domain over all of Florida and forcing the shattered skeletons to rebuild themselves in midair. When they rise again, the skeletons come back upgraded as Death Knights in dark armor with swords, shields, and rainbow flames burning in their eye sockets. The new Death Knights hit back harder, overlapping old domain powers and blowing enemy jets out of the sky one after another. Then a bigger threat drops over the flying island, a flat battleship with 1,000 eyes under its hull, all of them staring down at Leo's side. The eye ship switches targets to the approaching Death Knights and fires 1,000 elemental shots at once. That barrage shreds the Death Knights again, and Leo jumps onto the flying island to keep the fight under his own eyes. Before he can revive them, a jet opens fire directly on Leo and hammers his forehead, chest, arms, and legs with a full burst. Leo barely reacts, clicks his tongue, and answers with the Floridian staff's gun mode. 1,000 rainbow bullets roar out of the staff like homing missiles, chasing ships across the sky and detonating them in a chain of fireworks. 2 of those shots punch into the 1,000-eyed battleship too, leaving its hull chewed open and flames boiling up from inside. Leo senses plenty of life still inside the falling ship, so instead of relaxing, he immediately turns the crash into a cleanup mission. He orders the wounded taxi to stand down and tells Ricardo's group to finish off the crashed battleship survivors while staying alert for enemy guns. Then Leo puts Sierra in charge of a field infirmary, sending taxi and every future casualty down to the mall's lower floors for treatment and rotation. Sierra accepts the job, then immediately asks Leo with perfect seriousness if he also wants a break and some breast milk, leaving him speechless in the middle of the invasion. On the parking structure, Izen's white-haired followers watch Leo fight in the sky and freeze when they realize he is using necromancy like their own king. Ivy snaps them out of it by calling them freeloaders if they hide while Leo does everything alone. The insult works, and the old undead fighters flare with anger and killing intent instead of fear. Ivy turns to Izen for permission, and Izen coolly allows the charge while ordering Beatrice and Mark to stay behind. With Izen's approval, Ivy launches a 100-man rifle unit into the air in a tight attack formation toward a descending battleship. The battleship answers with a wall of cannon fire, and Ivy's unit fires black lightning shots straight into the incoming energy barrage. They keep pressing forward and rake the ship itself until explosions chain through the hull and citadel. But the wind barely matters, because thousands of armed enemy crewmates spill out of the wreck and flood the sky around them. The enemy immortals immediately spread overlapping soul domains that slow Ivy's people, seal their chi, and make it hard to breathe. Even half disabled and falling, Ivy's squad keeps firing, and their black shots erase 100 domain casters' body and soul at once. As broken domains wink out, Ivy instantly changes tactics and orders the Death Knights to cut down exposed soul domains while everyone else keeps their own domains shut. The Death Knights slash the air itself, shattering layer after layer of soul domains and sending hundreds of enemy immortals crashing down in bloody backlash. Then 2 more battleships arrive with drones and jets behind them, and the fresh barrage slams directly into Ivy and her front line. Half the platoon gets shot out of the sky, and panic spikes when everyone sees Ivy and several others blasted away like ragdolls. One Grim Reaper tries to turn the battle with his own domain and cuts apart hundreds inside a battleship, but a drone instantly destroys his domain and the backlash drops him too. Ivy roars at them to stop using domains and trust Leo instead, and that shout pulls the unit back from collapse. The survivors realize Leo's black suits absorb the worst of the damage, leaving only smoke and light burns instead of dead bodies. Ashamed but fired up again, the platoon reforms and starts baiting the smaller drones and jets instead of fighting stupidly. From below, Leo is relieved that his uniforms are holding, but the endless number of incoming battleships tells him this siege will drag on forever. He asks the system if he can cash in the invasion already, and the answer is a hard no unless he captures or kills the player responsible for the attack. That means all the stolen lifespan from dead invaders will vanish unless Leo finds the real mastermind before the invasion ends. When Leo looks past the motherships, he spots a long black-winged angel in space with the exact same face as Meow Meow, and a deep instinctive hatred hits him on sight. The angel is Overlord Mao Meow Meow, and he mocks Leo as the original vessel his parents made too well to waste on him. Mao releases his true cultivation and swells into a karmic sovereign presence so overwhelming it feels like he can erase the whole planet. He raises a monstrous sword long enough to split the planet, openly daring Leo to admire the power stolen from his own origin. Before the strike lands, Meow Meow appears out of nowhere, smashes Mao in the face, and shatters the giant sword in one hit. Mao only laughs it off and sneers that the little crow became Leo's shadow, while Meow Meow demands Leo's body back. Meow Meow turns into a black phoenix and breathes rainbow fire, but Mao answers with a rainbow punch that blows the phoenix apart. The black phoenix reforms above him and nearly swallows Mao whole, forcing him to dump his body into another dimension and teleport away. Mao retreats into a cruel game, luring Meow Meow farther from Leo while the invasion below keeps grinding on. Back at Leo's domain, the real problem is now on the ground too, because enemy ships and drones slip past the defenders and start bombarding the shopping mall, Gao Yan's house, and the granaries. The buildings are shielded, but Leo can see the thin barriers cracking under sustained anti-domain fire. Leo dives into his Dantian's time-accelerated inner world, searching his stolen skills for something that can change the battlefield fast. He finds the answer in the special pen he bought before, pours chi into it, and turns it into a rainbow plasma spear. With spear in one hand and his other strange weapon in the other, Leo faces the burning sky and quietly opens a domain. Leo swings his plasma spear once, and instead of hitting the machines, every hostile elf and werewolf within 100 kilometers suddenly drops dead. Their souls peel off as white smoke and spiral straight into Leo's chest like a giant vortex. The system counts more than 30,000 souls and dumps millions of years of lifespan into Leo at once, along with tutorial rewards. That still leaves the unmanned drones and jets, so Leo starts digging through his stolen powers again for something like an EMP. As he sorts the shadow menu by strength, one name jumps out at him, Dr. Mao, and the sight of it makes his blood boil before he even knows why. Far away on Ohio Man's planet, Simba gets another transfer order to help attack a Cathalhu colony, and he is already sick of the elves dragging everyone into another war. He vents that even 1,000,000 entities are not enough to scare the elves away from challenging Overlord Xiaomao again. Esther checks fate and sees the reason. Her seventh sister Ellen has just become a karmic sovereign, so their mother probably thinks she finally has a weapon strong enough to try again. She paints Ellen as a terrifying cultivation maniac who steals resources, erases people with negative karma, and already murdered 3 of their sisters. Simba goes quiet because he knows exactly how rotten Esther's mother is, but there are things too disgusting to even say out loud. He only tells Esther to stay safe, kisses her goodbye, shifts into a Fenrir werewolf, and teleports out on orders. After he leaves, Esther tries to keep calm by cleaning the house and letting their child play outside, telling herself Simba will be fine. Then she notices Simba's garage workshop still reeks, and for once decides to clean the one room he always told her not to touch. Inside, she finds a real craftsman's room full of tools and machines, but what hits her first is just how filthy Simba left it. She blasts the dust away with wind chi and starts wiping everything down, muttering at Simba for being a lazy slob. While cleaning, she picks up an old framed photo of young Simba with his family, and a bronze key slips out from behind it. Curiosity wins, and she finds the matching keyhole in the workshop desk drawer. Inside the locked drawer is a folder of strange papers she cannot read, plus an old photo of an Asian man whose face feels eerily familiar. To understand what Simba hid, Esther spends 1,000,000 years of lifespan on a language upgrade and suddenly gains full Earthling literacy. The first name she reads is Professor Mao Meow Meow, owner of an immortal cloning company, and the documents are records of human experiments on orphans and homeless children. The horror gets worse when Esther notices the scientists in the files have the same hand tattoos and green eyes as divine elves. She looks back at Simba's family photo and realizes his family had those same traits too, which means they were elves hiding in human lives on Earth. Digging deeper, Esther finds a test subject file for a boy named Leonardo Ariel, call sign Leo, with absurdly high potential and multiple Overlord DNA matches. The professor's note is the real nightmare: transfer my soul into this body, and kill the other scientists and test subjects. Then Esther flips the page and finds Simba's own handwritten note mourning Leo as his brother and swearing revenge for the life Leo saved. Inside the enemy cube warship, Ingoff Jack hears one loss report after another as whole ships vanish from the battlefield. Jack stays grim but practical, ordering the fleet to stop suicidal charges, encircle Leo's domain, and bombard it from outside its airspace. He also sends the orbital ships toward the axis pole to wreck the planet's magnetic field, trying to break the defenders another way. The new plan slows the losses, and Jack finally starts to think the surviving ships might hold together. That relief dies instantly when a massive blast rocks the cube warship and a report screams that Colony Milo has been destroyed. Jack stares at the side screen in disbelief as one allied artificial planet is shown exploding apart. The zoomed footage reveals the real horror. 10,000 enormous gray tentacles have pierced the mothership from the inside. Then the creature fully emerges, a cat-faced Cathalhu big enough to bite through ships and drag everything into its mouth. Jack recognizes the species at once and can barely process why a Cathalhu, one of Fenrir's worst enemies, is here at all. Before the bridge can recover, another operator blurts out even worse news: Overlord Max's life signature has vanished too. A few minutes earlier, the Overlord aboard that other mothership calmly orders 1,000,000 drones down to wipe out a distant continent and seize a foothold. He watches drone footage with ugly satisfaction as jets and machines slaughter defenseless mortals on the ground. So relaxed by the massacre, he shoves down raw steak and demands more, like this is just another routine hunt. But when his chihuahua-faced aide heads for the door, he finds the bridge sealed off and the guards outside already dead in blood. On the far side of that barrier stands a gray werewolf who looks exactly like Overlord Lucky, arms crossed and completely at ease. The aide instantly buys the disguise, blurts out Lucky's name, and hurries to open the curtain for him. Once the shield drops, the imposter walks straight into the bridge, pats the aide's head, and acts like he belongs there. The smell of blood reaches the crew, and the bridge turns tense as the Overlord finally locks eyes with the supposed Lucky. The Overlord realizes the fake and unleashes his karmic law, summoning bloodhounds to rip at the intruder's soul. The soul attack still does nothing, and the fake Lucky calmly mocks him for thinking that level of power can touch his master's side. Then the imposter drops the disguise and reveals his true body as one of Leo's guardian statues. Transparent karmic strings spread across the bridge, exposing every soul's tie to the river of karma and marking the Overlord with the thickest thread of all. The Overlord panics and orders the bloodhounds to tear harder, but the statue simply reaches through the web and grabs his karmic thread. With one cut, the Guardian severs the Overlord's fate thread and grafts it onto himself. The Overlord can only howl a useless threat in Lucky's name before the statue calmly passes judgment. The Overlord's soul is ripped straight into the statue's chest, and the Guardian enjoys the kill without any hurry. He does not stop with the commander, and the rest of the bridge crew suddenly feel their insides melt into gore. That same sovereign law ripples through Max's whole fleet, killing crews, dropping drones, and sending subordinate ships crashing out of the sky. With that side wiped out, the Wolf Guardian cheerfully declares the job done and decides to help elsewhere. Back at Leo's side of the war, System notices Floodin as Lucky kills Overlord Max, steals his assets, and racks up huge achievement rewards for Leo. One notice confirms Mooniang has already destroyed a Star Destroyer mothership too, proving Leo's side is tearing through the invasion from several angles at once. Even so, the machine assault is still hammering his store, pylon tower, and apartments hard enough to break 2 of the 3 outer barriers. Leo is irritated because he can kill living enemies easily, but these swarming machines need a different answer. So he digs through his pocket universe roster, searching for someone with the right kind of power to deal with flying machines. The name that catches him is Dr. Meow Meow Meow, a black-winged angel whose face and name match Meow Meow closely enough to make Leo instantly suspicious. Leo has no time to chase that mystery, so he focuses on Mao's space and time power and decides to test the shadow anyway despite the absurd cultivation level. Inside Leo's pocket universe, Mao's shadow appears and immediately takes the form of a colossal black phoenix spreading across the void. Before Leo can even start, black fire detonates from inside his own body and bursts out through his eyes, mouth, and ears. Leo stays calm, reaches into his own chest, and rips out the black fireball that was planted inside him. To answer that trick, Leo tears out one of his ribs and turns it into a transparent broadsword. The phoenix shadow immediately reacts, summoning a black flame katana and preparing to cut him down first. That katana expands into a gigantic falling blade, but Leo meets it with Beatrice's II technique and slices straight through it. Leo's slash keeps going past the weapon and cuts off one of the phoenix's wings, forcing it back into humanoid form with a missing arm. The shadow simply regenerates the lost arm, confirming to Leo that raw damage alone will not be enough. Leo has already teleported behind him with Grim Reaper movement, slipping into attack range before the shadow notices. Desperate, the shadow uses a time power that slows Leo's body to a near stop even with the sword mid-swing. The shadow takes the opening and hacks at Leo's neck, but the blade only sinks a few millimeters before stopping. Leo actually sounds impressed by the wound, and that tiny compliment is the last break his enemy gets. He breaks free through sheer force and unloads Mark's brutal multi-hit barrage at point-blank range. The shadow's body is beaten down so hard that it crumbles into dust in front of Leo. Leo still does not trust a simple physical kill, so he floods the dust with Izen's death magic to poison the soul directly. When the shadow's artificial soul finally tries to escape, Leo cuts it down inside Beatrice's invisible sword domain. The simulation confirms Mao's shadow is defeated, and Leo is pleased to learn that this terrifying enemy was at least straightforward to hit. He compares that fight to his usual training and realizes dodgers like Beatrice are much more annoying than a monster that prefers overpowering attacks. Leo opens his eyes in the real world almost immediately, having spent barely a second on the test. He cannot copy Mao's skill yet, but he keeps the idea, tears out a rib again, and forms the same transparent sword in reality. Then he layers Beatrice's cutting domain and Mark's multi-hit domain together, turning the sky around him into overlapping attack zones. His first combined slash sprays thousands of cuts through the air, but most of them miss, and only a few dozen drones and jets get split apart. The second try is even worse, and Leo's face sours when he sees how many attacks he just wasted. Fed up, Leo starts swinging harder and more directly, demanding the machine stay still while he knocks them out of the sky one after another. Watching from nearby, Izen is openly proud as she recognizes Leo using both Beatrice's soul domain and Mark's multi-hit power. But Izen also refuses to be outdone, and she points at the fresh battlefield corpses and calls the dead back up as her slaves. In answer to her command, flesh and bones knit themselves into a new undead force as 10,000 zombies and skeletons rise to join the war. Far out in space, Meow Meow's black-winged angel statue keeps chasing Mao Meow Meow, but every attack misses while the devil casually mocks him. Meow Meow roars out time law to lock the area down, and Mao Meow Meow immediately answers with his own stronger time and space law. Inside the frozen void, Meow Meow still can't land a hit, and Mao Meow Meow's palm strikes start cracking the statue body apart. Realizing he cannot win, Meow Meow bails out in smoke and retreats toward Leo's planet while Meow Meow angrily calls after him. Meow Meow catches up, caves in Meow Meow's chest with a punch, then teleports behind him for another hit before the statue escapes again in smoke. Meow finally stops chasing, turns serious, and forms a gigantic sword far larger than a star to strike Leo's world directly. Back on the flying island, Gao Yan and Jin Yong are watching the battle when Hua Taishu's crude wolf-hunting entrance interrupts them. Jin Yong quietly warns Gao Yan that Hua Taishu will drag talented people into a non-stop torture-style training chamber, but Gao Yan just gets more interested. Their small talk dies when the sky darkens and the giant sword drops toward the planet with terrifying speed. Gao Yan empties his strongest pistol into the descending blade, but every shot just glances off. Jin Yong tries mass-produced rifle fire next, and that fails just as badly. All across the defense line, Ivy, Mark, Beatrice, Izan and the other allies throw in their strongest attacks, and the giant sword still does not take a scratch. Gao Yan and Jin Yong make one last desperate melee stop, but the sword's shockwave blasts them away and keeps dropping. The blade finally slams into the flying island, carving deep through it before something abruptly stops the cut. Everyone turns and sees thousands of fishing lines pouring out of the Orlando Mystic Realm portal to bind the sword in mid-cut. The one holding those lines steps out at last, Kitten, an elderly fisherman statue, and he crushes Meow's giant blade like it is nothing. Out in space, Meow is startled that a mortal world can hide this many monsters, and his eyes settle on Leo standing still on top of them all. Then Meow spots Izan on the parking lot roof directing undead against the remaining aircraft, and his attention turns instantly filthy. As exploding zombies drag aircraft down, and Izan calmly rebuilds fresh undead from the gore, Meow gets smug about the body transfer tricks he thinks will let him take whatever he wants. Before he can make a move, a thick tentacle smacks the back of Meow's neck and snaps his attention away from the planet. Meow looks up and finds Mooniang with Lucky riding on top, both of them openly declaring that Leo has ordered his death. Meow laughs at them. Certain creatures at their level can never threaten a karmic sovereign like him. He proves how dangerous he is by summoning twin black katanas and instantly cutting Mooniang into pieces. Lucky answers with his killing move, melting Meow's eyes and organs, but the doctor barely treats it like a problem. Instead, Meow unveils Return to Zero, a karmic domain so overwhelming that the whole galaxy starts rewinding. A minute of history is erased, restoring Meow and his giant sword while undoing the damage his enemies just caused. This time he grabs the blade himself, curves past Kitten's lines, and drives it straight at Leo with all restraint gone. Leo finally opens his eyes and meets the incoming sword with a single punch. The sword explodes on impact, and the force of Leo's punch crosses space to crack Meow's face from far away. Humiliated, Meow rushes back with 100 star-killing swords, ready to bury the whole world under sheer scale. Gao Yan and Jin Yong fly up in panic and throw everything they have at the incoming swords, but the repelling force bounces their attacks away. As the swords keep falling, Leo exhales, remembers the trigger word, and unleashes his own time-space domain. Leo's gray dome swallows the entire star system, freezing everyone in place, and this time even Meow is trapped inside it. Everyone else is locked so completely they cannot even sense what happened, but Meow stays conscious and realizes he still cannot move a muscle. Leo calmly swims through the frozen void and starts punching the giant swords apart one by one. Watching helplessly, Meow counts the seconds and assumes Leo will soon hit his limit the way he once did. But the minutes keep piling up past Meow's own record, and his confidence starts slipping into genuine confusion. Stuck in place, Meow starts piecing together old secrets, and realizes Leo's body may carry multiple stolen overlord bloodlines that should not fit together this well. Leo even takes a breather between swords, which makes Meow think the boy is wasting his chance instead of killing the caster first. Just as Meow finally starts forcing a finger to move, every remaining giant sword suddenly vanishes into smoke at once. Leo has switched to death magic through his staff, and with the battlefield cleared he finally turns his full attention to the doctor. Leo crosses the distance in a blink, and Meow explodes out of the freeze just in time to scream that his body and cultivation are still superior. Leo does not hesitate. He grabs Meow by the throat and blows his head apart with one brutal punch. Then Leo spreads death miasma through every scrap of flesh, hunting for the real soul hidden inside the remains. Leo finds Meow's real soul buried in the remains and starts shredding it too, moving with the grim confidence of someone who has done this over and over. Desperate to survive, Meow fires Return to Zero again, restoring his body and winding back the moment just enough to break Leo's kill. Leo smashes through the rewind's restraint and goes for the kill again, but Meow whips out a hidden katana and cuts an invisible karmic line instead of meeting the punch. The severed bond to Izan makes Leo flinch for a split second, and Meow uses that tiny opening to teleport far away. Thinking he finally got clear, Meow laughs in relief and brags that next time he will cut Leo's karma of existence and erase him for good. His celebration ends instantly when a fishing hook punches through his mouth from nowhere. When Meow turns, he finds Kitten waiting with Mooniang, Lucky, and Meow, and the old fisherman is suddenly the most terrifying thing in space. Mao Miao Miao recognizes the face as Overlord Xiao Mao, and Kitten coldly reveals that Leonardo can use that bloodline too. Then the fisherman's statue reshapes into a middle-aged scientist in a lab coat, and Mao Miao Miao finally realizes Kitten is Aslan. Mao Miao Miao still tries to hide behind his superior body and cultivation, but Aslan and the three guardians are already done listening. Muniang pierces his chest, Miao Miao takes his head, and Lucky burns out his insides in a clean team execution. Aslan reels Mao Miao Miao's soul out with the hook while Muniang swallows the ruined flesh, making sure the body cannot grow back again. Mao Miao Miao tries to fire Return to Zero as a trap soul, but Aslan casually shuts that hope down and smacks a chunk of spirit right off him. Miao Miao wants the doctor finished right now, but Aslan stops him and says Mao Miao Miao is still useful before they erase him. At Aslan's cue, Muniang spits out a Hall of Fate crystals, including a huge entity grade 1, proving the doctor was too valuable to waste. Once the crystals are secured, Aslan lets Muniang devour Mao Miao Miao's soul and orders him to keep the bastard alive enough inside his inner universe to suffer for ages and save the useful crystals for Leo. With the doctor finally dealt with, Aslan and the three guardians relax a little and head back toward home to help Leo with the aftermath. But back on the parking lot roof, the hidden cost of Mao Miao Miao's karmic cut finally lands as Izan suddenly collapses mid-command. Izan stops breathing, her heart goes still, and a transparent karma string drops beside her body, revealing that the severed link was tied to her life. Far from Leo's battlefield, Overlord Milo realizes his troops have lost contact with their colony, and the mood in his camp turns ugly fast. Milo snaps at his men, abandons the lost colony, and orders them to hunt other New Earth instead of going back. While the group flies away, Milo fumes over the Ohio man who gave him bad coordinates, and quietly decides to fake a productive campaign with kidnapped trophies. Half an hour later, Milo spots the hidden Joyous Yin Yang sect in Tapaya City, and his greed comes right back. He orders everyone captured as proof of war spoils, and the raiders dive straight into the city and sect. Situnantian, Murongchi, and the Ouyang clan rally the defenders, but the attackers are too overwhelming to stop. In only 10 brutal minutes, the hidden stronghold is crushed, with survivors chained up and the city and sect left wrecked behind them. Satisfied with his haul, Milo buys a mass teleport scroll with lifespan and takes his whole raiding party off the planet. Elsewhere in space, Captain Ingolf Jack also gives up the campaign and orders a full retreat after losing both overlords. Before leaving, Jack sends the remaining jets and drones on a last kamikaze strike toward Leo's domain. Jack does not even wait for the explosions, and the cube mothership vanishes back to the Swastika Galaxy once the surviving battleships are recovered. Back on the ground, the suicide attack tears through Leo's farms, warehouses, homes, pylon tower, and recycling center, wiping out the west slum and leveling the Tang Manor. The pony team ignores the ruined outer buildings and forms a hard defensive ring around Leo's shopping mall instead. Lightning, lasers, and chi attacks fill the air, and Taxi and the other horse monsters end up carrying the heaviest part of the defense. Pushed to the limit, Taxi and another horse monster gain insight mid-battle and break through into immortal centaur forms. The newly ascended centaurs keep firing until their chi is almost empty, and they look ready to collapse on the spot. The final suicide bombers are finally dropped by Gao Yen and Jin Yong, ending the attack just before the defenders give out. With the danger gone, the exhausted horse team drops flat to the ground and can barely think about anything except water, food, and sleep. While everyone is down, Ivy reaches the parking lot roof and is horrified to find Izan collapsed with no heartbeat. Ivy pours chi into Izan's chest, but it just leaks uselessly out of her body instead of reviving her. Beatrice rushes in with Leo's strongest healing pill, and the medicine restarts Izan's heart and breathing but still does not wake her. Seeing no other answer, Ivy and Beatrice decide to ask Leo for help. At the same time, Leo rushes back with a bad feeling and freezes the moment he sees Izan unconscious on the floor. Leo feels that his bond with Izan has been severed and instantly blames Mao Miao Miao for doing something before he escaped. He tries a crude joke to wake her up, but Izan stays completely unresponsive, and everyone just stares at him. When the joke fails, Leo quietly carries Izan to the bus and lays her on his bed while her subordinates trail after him. Inside the bus, Ivy asks what happened, but Leo can only guess at a curse and admits he does not truly understand it either. Leo even tests the Sleeping Beauty idea and kisses Izan, clinging to the hope that something simple might break the coma. When even that fails, Leo drops the act, shouts for Izan to wake up, and gets nothing back. A lich mutters that maybe Izan should be turned undead first, and the idea hits Leo hard enough that he immediately grabs his Staff of Singularity. Ivy and Beatrice grab Leo before he can cast, warning that forcing necromancy on a living Izan would only torture her. Leo demands a better explanation for her coma, but nobody in the room can give him one. That is when Aslan walks into the bus and calmly says he can explain. Aslan examines Izan like a seasoned doctor and confirms the problem is something called karma severance. When Aslan says the explanation reaches into higher realm knowledge, he politely clears the room and Beatrice forces the others to cooperate. Once they are alone, Aslan seals the room with a sound barrier and prepares to tell Leo what really happened. After a long lecture, Leo sums it up his own way. Mao cut Izan's karma link, and that broke the life support she had through him. Aslan corrects Leo's analogy and explains that karma rivers govern souls and reincarnation, while higher beings can tamper with the strings connecting every soul to its record. The key point is brutal but simple. When Leo revived and purified Izan before, he tied her existence to himself, so severing that bond left her alive but cut off from her source of life force. Leo cuts through the jargon and demands the fix, and Aslan admits a karmic sovereign would normally be needed before awkwardly hinting Leo himself may be able to do it. Leo refuses to be brushed off and makes Aslan teach him from scratch how to create a karmic river in his own Dantian universe. The lesson drags on for the entire day while Izan remains asleep beside them. The next morning, Aslan steps out and calmly tells the waiting group that Leo has the situation under control. Aslan leaves, but when Ivy rushes for the door, an invisible barrier blocks everyone from getting back into the bus. Aslan's voice explains that nobody is allowed inside until Leo finishes, which only leaves Ivy furious and locked out of her own quarters. Meanwhile inside, Leo sits by Izan's bed, closes his eyes, and dives into the rough unfinished universe inside his Dantian. He notices the rainbow sun collecting a strange liquid into ring-like seas, but he ignores that mystery because Izan comes first. Instead, Leo opens simulation mode and targets both Aslan and Mao Meow Meow, planning to steal the missing pieces of knowledge through repeated fights. Aslan's profile shocks Leo with just how loaded it is, revealing him as Dr. Aslan Kitten Ariel, a 5-law entity packed with soul, karma, and creation abilities. Rather than back off, Leo calculates how many wins he needs to strip every useful skill and decides to start grinding on Aslan first. The first simulation looks easy for 1 second, because Leo freezes time and destroys Aslan's body with a punch right away. Then Aslan's artificial soul slips free, ignores the time stop, and fires a fishing line straight into Leo's soul instead of his body. For the first time, Leo feels his soul yanked out of his own body inside the simulation. Aslan restores his own body, creates a frog from nothing, and stuffs Leo's captured soul into it before Leo can respond. Trapped in the frog and unable to fight back, Leo gets crushed by Aslan's fist and loses the simulation outright. Leo wakes in the void staring at a defeat notice, stunned that one of his own guardians just killed him in practice. The shock quickly turns into excitement, because now Leo wants Aslan's weapon and every soul-related trick that just beat him. So Leo throws himself into non-stop rematches with Aslan, using the harmless deaths to study exactly what can still hurt him. 10 real-world hours turn into a year of simulation grinding, and after 50,000 brutal bouts, Leo finally claws out his first 1,000 wins against Aslan. After grinding out his first 1,000 wins, Leo finally claims one of Aslan's skills and chooses the laws of souls because he needs real answers about soul attacks. The skill unlock slams a flood of scripture and memory into his mind, and Leo spends hours in the inner world digesting what feels like a billion pages of knowledge. When the enlightenment settles, Leo is almost angry at himself because he realizes he has been fighting like an amateur without really using soul power or even basic sage fundamentals. He pieces together the big rule fast. Laws are universal authority. But when two fighters share the same law, they cannot freely borrow the universe's power and must burn their own energy instead. Then Leo starts reciting the laws of souls out loud and learns the harsh framework behind souls, reincarnation, vessels, and karma rivers. The recitation turns grim when he reaches the section on karma threads and learns that anyone severed from their river becomes a stray soul facing deletion if they fail to reconnect within a year. That rule makes him think of Izan at once, because Aslan said her karma thread was tied to Leo instead of a true karma river. After rechecking the wording, Leo catches the loophole that matters. The law never says whose karma river a stray must reconnect to, so Izan might be saved by reconnecting her to him again. Even with that breakthrough, Leo knows he still lacks the basics he skipped, so he starts hunting for sage-level opponents in the simulation to learn proper authority and domain use. The system puts Overlord Max at the top of the list, a Fenrir werewolf sage with ridiculous-sounding authorities, and Leo decides he can still use him as practice material. Leo spends 2 real days in seclusion, which turns into more than 5 years of non-stop inner training before he finally opens his eyes again in the real world. He comes back calmer and more controlled, with his once domineering rainbow aura now tucked neatly into his body instead of spilling everywhere. Looking at Izan, Leo immediately spots the problem. Her karma string is still attached to her, but the other end is just floating loose in the air. Annoyed that the answer was this simple, Leo grabs the loose karma thread and injects chi into its severed end to pull it back to himself. The thread answers on its own, stretches longer, and sinks straight into Leo's chest like it already knows where it belongs. Inside his Dantian universe, the thread finds one of Leo's red karma crystals in the inner river and latches on, finally completing the reconnection. Leo feels his own life force begin to flow toward Izan, and the missing logic behind her condition finally clicks into place. With the mystery solved, he grumbles that he had been accidentally stealing karmic threads and karma embryos all along, which explains why some people died after touching him and some did not. Then he teases the sleeping Izan for being a shameless leecher, because her lifespan now runs off his, and even the friends she resurrected are linked back to him too. Still in a playful mood, Leo climbs on top of the sleeping Izan and decides to replenish her mana the old-fashioned way while she is out. On the third morning, Izan finally wakes up groggy and immediately senses that something is very wrong. The second she notices Leo beside her in the same bed, Izan erupts and starts slapping and punching him in pure outrage. When that gets her nowhere, she storms into the bathroom to clean up, still shaking with embarrassed fury. In the mirror, Izan discovers her body has changed, and the sight of her enlarged chest and a bite mark sends her into a fresh screaming fit. While Izan is melting down in the bathroom, Leo's mind is still in the simulation, where he nearly beats Aslan by grabbing his karma thread for the first time. But Aslan's soul answers with the same nasty trick that keeps killing Leo, a point-blank soul detonation that explodes like a supernova. Leo gets deleted again, respawns in the simulation, and stares at the mocking system message in pure disgust. The system makes it worse by explaining that the highest difficulty Aslan scales with Leo himself, so the stronger Leo gets, the stronger this nightmare opponent becomes too. After that loss, Leo wakes for real and drags himself to the bathroom, only to catch Izan staring at her upgraded figure in the mirror. Leo shamelessly approves what he sees, smacks her on the butt, and strolls into the shower while Izan demands to know what he did to her. Under the cold water, Leo casually tells her he gave her life force and even unlocked a lifespan menu so she can finally read the years she has left. Izan checks the status screen and is stunned to see a real remaining lifespan again instead of the old null result. When she presses him for the exact truth, Leo explains that the extra life force will keep her alive even if her karma string gets cut again before he can rescue her. Leo offers to explain Sage powers right there in the bathroom, and the second he suggests bathing together, Izan remembers their situation and overheats all over again. Her embarrassment melts into desire when she starts staring at Leo's body, and he instantly notices. Leo pushes the tease further with another line about a morning injection, and before Izan can recover, he grabs her and drags her into the shower. She resists for a moment, but the fight fades fast and the two of them end up kissing and turning the bath into a full morning tryst. 2 hours later, they come out dressed and much calmer, with Izan on Leo's lap while he finally explains Sage powers, laws, karma strings, and the danger of severance properly. The lecture distracts Izan from her embarrassment completely, and she jumps to the bigger question of what Leo's real cultivation level actually is. Leo dodges with flirting first, but when Izan keeps pushing, he admits he is definitely beyond Sage or entity, and can only guess he is something like a karmic sovereign or higher. His explanation for getting this strong is somehow even more ridiculous, because Leo says he mostly just ate everything he found, including giant monsters and even contaminated snow. Then Leo gets practical and tells Izan the crisis is over, so from now on he will personally teach her how to grow stronger. He checks her condition and realizes she has already stepped into the deity realm, even if she still has no idea how much her Danteon universe has changed. When Izan doubts he can teach what he barely understands himself, Leo counters by saying he can directly pass on 1,000 techniques whenever he wants. To prove it, Leo presses a finger to her forehead and starts a memory transfer using law power and time manipulation together. A tiny time domain envelopes the room and slows the outside world by 1,000 times, giving Izan endless inner hours to absorb techniques copied from her own shadow self. Izan drops into a trance under the information flood, and Leo keeps stroking her back to steady her while quietly wishing he could also give her a system for self-protection. Even with the time trick, it still takes 2 full real hours before Izan finally digests enough to come back exhausted and panting. Leo proudly asks for her approval, and Izan can only glare and call him a monster after seeing just how absurd his methods really are. Leo takes the insult in stride, announces that he is heading out to work, and ruins the exit by joking about more injections and even dragging Ivy into the idea. That is the final straw, and Izan screams at him to get out while hurling the pillow straight at his head. Once outside the bus, Leo is met by Izan's waiting followers, and Ivy can barely hold herself together as she asks whether her queen survived. Leo tells them Izan has woken up, and the whole group breaks on the spot with relief, especially Ivy, whose legs give out from the sheer release of tension. At Leo's permission, Ivy, Mark, and Beatrice rush onto the bus to see her, leaving him alone just long enough for the next report to arrive. The 4 guardian statues are already waiting for Leo outside, and crack-chested Meow Meow kneels first to confess failure for the damage done to Florida Domain. Leo answers Meow Meow's grave apology with a stupid joke so abrupt that even Aslan struggles not to laugh. Ignoring the mockery, Meow Meow lists the losses anyway: wrecked farmland, a damaged white tree and leaking dream spores, shattered mall glass, broken recycling machinery, collapsed apartments, and a fallen pylon tower. He even blames himself for failing to defeat Meow Meow Meow, convinced his incompetence is what left the whole domain in critical condition. Leo can only stare, because Meow Meow has somehow forgotten the most obvious thing about his master: the domain has a repair button. He pulls up the domain system and calmly taps repair all, paying the huge cost without hesitation. In one instant, the entire Florida domain snaps back to perfect condition, from the fields and apartments to the tower and even Meow Meow's cracked chest. Realizing he just made a tragic speech over a fixable problem, Meow Meow wants to die from embarrassment right there. Leo absolutely does not help, roasting him harder and pointing out that he himself has been a clown for months without dying over it. That cruelty finally breaks Meow Meow's last bit of dignity, and he flees to the flying island to hide in statue form while the others lose it laughing. When the laughter dies down, Lucky steps up proudly to report something much more useful. He harvested lifespan from the invaders and brought it all to Leo. Leo gets over 2 million years of lifespan from the transfer and immediately rewards Lucky with delighted praise and head pats like the best boy he is. Then Mooniyang cuts in with smug confidence and says he has something even better to show his master. With perfect dramatic timing, Mooniyang spills a pile of Earth Fate crystals and Sky Fate crystals onto the ground, ending the report with treasure instead of bad news. As soon as the scattered Fate crystals appeared, Leo's alien ring pulled them in and counted the haul: 17 Earth crystals, 4 Sky crystals, and 1 Entity crystal. The ring offers to merge 7 Earth crystals, and Leo immediately agrees because it finally clears an old tutorial quest and gives him something new to test. Brown light wraps around Leo's fingers, and the ring spits out a ping-pong-sized True Earth Fate crystal into his palm. The crystal looks plain at first, but Leo feels invisible little tentacles wriggling across his skin and recoils at the creepy sensation. Mooniyang explains the crystal has 2 uses: socket it into the pylon tower or implant it directly into someone's soul. When Leo asks about soul implantation, Mooniyang says it gives the target years of absurd good luck before the true crystal is eventually forced back out. Mooniyang confirms the spent crystal breaks back down into 7 pieces, and Leo blurts out that this is basically Dragon Balls. Mooniyang smugly shoots that comparison down and insists Fate crystals are better because they can keep granting luck-based wishes for years instead of one flashy wish. Leo pushes past the nerd fight and asks the real question: if he implants it in himself, can it grant his own wishes? Mooniyang says the crystal can handle ordinary wishes over and over, but impossible wishes just burn through its energy for the closest workable result. Satisfied for now, Leo walks over to the fully repaired level 15 pylon tower to use the crystal there instead. At the base, Leo finds multiple labeled sockets, but his current tower can only accept True Earth, True Sky, and True Heavenly Fate crystals. He slots the True Earth Fate crystal into the tower, and the whole structure immediately starts changing. The upgraded tower turns earth-aligned, growing a fountain pool and a cat-faced spout that starts pouring brown holy water. The new tower status confirms it now produces holy water of True Earth Fate crystal, and Leo instantly recognizes it as perfect material for both evolution and alchemy. Right after that, Leo finally turns in the old Fate crystal tutorial quest and claims its main rewards. The payout gives Leo another True Earth Fate crystal, the Gnosis of Earth Fate, and a newly unlocked inventory system. Leo calls the inventory feature boring, and Mooniyang fires back with another sharp joke before scampering off like a smug cat. Left alone with a second True Earth Fate crystal, Leo hesitates between adding it to the tower or using it on someone for a test. He calls over Aslan and asks the blunt question first: how much lifespan would he gain if he implanted the crystal into his own soul? Aslan says the best case is about 1,000,000 years, but once the crystal is spent it needs roughly 1,000,000,000 years to recharge, which kills Leo's interest fast. Since he already has plenty of lifespan banked, Leo starts thinking harder about long-term value instead of wasting a rare crystal for raw years. Leo confirms with Aslan that Sky and even Entity Fate crystals can also be merged upward the same way, which makes Leo immediately count how many Entity crystals he still lacks. That pushes Leo toward research, and Aslan encourages it, saying another True Earth crystal in the tower would only speed production instead of unlocking anything new. Leo notices how suspiciously useful Aslan has become and starts wondering who this old fisherman really is. Leo puts the spare crystal away and pulls out the pink heart-shaped Gnosis of Earth Fate next, planning to toss that into research too. Aslan abruptly stops him and insists this time, because Gnosis is different, it cannot be mass-produced, and the Tao inside is something even top powers have failed to understand. Leo pushes back and asks what Aslan is hiding, because this is starting to feel like more than advice from a simple shadow. Aslan only half-jokes that he is Leo's father, and Leo instantly dismisses it as nonsense. Even so, Leo trusts the warning enough to use the Gnosis instead of researching it, pressing the crystal straight into his forehead. The Gnosis floods Leo with a disturbing origin story. Fate crystals were artifacts made from a deity's own power inside a Dantian universe. The memory keeps going as civilizations grow around those crystals, worship them, weaponize them, and finally drag the whole universe into ruinous religious wars. When the deity returns to stop the madness, the mortals treat him like a devil, so he takes the crystals back and slaughters the useless worlds he made. Leo opens his eyes badly shaken and blurts out the terrifying conclusion: maybe everyone is living inside someone's Dantian universe. Aslan dodges the truth again, soothing Leo with a calm denial that this is their reality, and nobody owns it now. Leo decides to let it go for the moment, accepts the explanation just enough to move on, and heads for the shopping mall to start proper research. Left behind, Aslan looks up at the sky and silently thinks that Leo's soul transmigration origin has gone far beyond what Eleanor ever intended. Inside the shopping mall, Leo passes the sheltered crowds and employees, and the moment they see him they erupt with relieved cheers. Leo tells everyone the crisis is over and they can head home carefully, which sends the packed shelter into instant celebration. He ignores the commotion, flies straight to the 5th floor workshop, and finds the alchemy floor still running at full speed after the recent attack. Inside one workshop, Leo finds Tang Xian and several clan members sitting like students, studying the automated cauldron process in stunned respect. Tang Xian salutes, and Leo can tell the old alchemist finally understands why powerful locals surrendered to these absurdly productive workshops. The cauldron finishes a batch of superior grade and pinnacle grade Fenridantion pills, and Leo checks the system output at a glance. Even with all that power packed inside, Leo still looks unimpressed because to him 10 days without eating is worse than the extra lifespan. Since he does not want it himself, Leo casually offers one pill to Tang Xian at production price for 2,000 years of lifespan. The instant he hears the pill also gives 2,000 years of poison and metal essence, Tang Xian buys it on the spot and hurries off to consume it. Once the room is clear, Leo finally sacrifices the spare true earth fate crystal in the free cauldron and starts researching it for real. The research window reveals the crystal's best use is not luck or lifespan at all, but alchemy. It can enchant a supreme weapon with a god-slaying providence-breaking effect. Then Leo hits the bigger discovery. The system can recreate earth fate crystals if he gets a deity Dantian crystal, adds 1 drop of his blood, and pays 1,000 years of his lifespan. That instantly reminds Leo of all the god-level corpses and war trophies he still has not checked after the battle, and he wonders whether Cat already ate some of the best parts. Far away in the contaminated canyon river, Cat sneezes in the middle of underwater seclusion, while orange tribulation clouds melt into the water above her. The tribulation starts hammering her with orange lightning underwater, but Cat barely cares because compared to Leo's black lightning, this feels weak. Instead of fearing the tribulation, Cat gets homesick and hungry at the same time, missing Leo badly while her stomach growls. She simply absorbs the lightning and even drinks the polluted river water to fuel her breakthrough instead of resisting it. By the end of the day, Cat finally breaks into the immortal realm and sheds her giant chomper body for a new child-sized humanoid plant form. The first thing the newly transformed Cat does is devour her own discarded body to fill her new stomach. Even after eating herself, she is still starving, so she turns toward the river monsters and starts looking for the next meal. Before she can hunt, a dead elf from a wrecked battleship drops into the river, and Cat happily pounces on the corpse instead. The moment Cat touches the elf, roots burst from her skin to drain the body dry before she bites in and discovers she loves the taste. While chewing through the remains, Cat hits something hard and spits out a tiny crystal ball with stars trapped inside it. She tries to eat the strange crystal too, but when her teeth cannot crack it, she pouts and gives up. Annoyed, Cat casually throws the useless little crystal at a nearby thunder caiman and kills it in one hit. Leo opens the Fate Crystal quest again and sees Phase 3 is almost done, but one ugly requirement still blocks him. He has to invade another player's home planet. He grumbles that he has no way to attack another player's city, gives up on solving it for now, and decides to reinforce his own domain first. Out in the West Slum area, Leo studies his new expansion map and realizes his 777 territory tickets can now claim any land touching his domain. After comparing costs, he spots the best deal right away. The huge eastern block is expensive up front, but it would double his territory in one purchase. Leo buys the eastern land with 500 tickets, then immediately starts unlocking a line of northern blocks for a future logistics route toward the distant Black Mountain. As the fresh territory merges into his domain, yin-yang qi and pale fog spill outward and start changing the new land. The mutation is immediate, with ordinary plants turning into spirit-grown versions while the northern lava field cools down into usable claimed land. But the northern field still carries scars from the invasion, scattered with craters, black smoke, and the bodies of small creatures caught in the attack. Leo notices a heartbreaking scene when wounded lava badgers gather around one fallen friend and try to wake it up. When he approaches, the surviving badgers hiss at him instead of running, still trying to protect their dead comrade. Their loyalty hits Leo harder than he expected, and he decides their courage deserves a reward. Using his senses, Leo finds the dead badger's lingering soul and quietly offers it a second chance at life. The little soul accepts, and Leo draws it into his Dantian universe to give it a new home. Then Leo calls out to every fallen creature in the field, offering all of them a peaceful next life if they choose him. More than 10,000 lava badger souls answer him at once, and Leo calmly accepts every one of them into his universe. He even asks the surviving badgers whether they want to follow him too, but they only hiss back because they cannot understand what he means. Since they refuse, Leo settles on a simpler compensation and heads back to the mall for supplies. Half an hour later he comes back with an absurd peace offering, hauling 100 baskets of cabbages for the surviving badgers. The badgers hesitate, then catch on that the food is for them and rush the baskets until every cabbage disappears. Leo keeps the important detail to himself. These are Floridian cabbages from his rooftop greenhouses, and he quietly hopes the badgers turn into future assets. With that settled, Leo goes back to work and starts laying a raised concrete road across the newly claimed northern land. The road only reaches about 2.7 kilometers before his tickets run low, leaving the Black Mountain and Cauliflower City still far off. He briefly considers spending lifespan to keep expanding, then rejects the idea and remembers it is time to check the Fate Stadium cooldown. Inside Leo's Dantian universe, time races ahead, and the badger souls he rescued are already reincarnating on a rainforest planet as newborn alligators. Because they kept memories from their old lives and grow in a chi-rich world, these young alligators adapt fast and start becoming far stronger than normal beasts. Leo does not realize it yet, but this small act of mercy is planting a future military asset inside his universe. Far away in a command tent, Ingolf Jack kneels in panic before Ellen, Ethan's younger sister and the current crown princess, while she reviews the campaign records. Jack desperately blames the failed assault on Overlord Mao Meow Meow, saying Mao forced them into a full attack instead of the safer guerrilla plan. Ellen tears that excuse apart, pointing out that if Jack was so obedient, he may as well die just because someone ordered it. Without any dramatic warning, Ellen casually lifts her pen and severs Jack's karma, killing him where he kneels. After disposing of Jack, Ellen turns to her real fear. Sooner or later her own mother may try to steal her body and bone roots. She weighs ugly options fast, debating whether to drag Ethan back, use Esther as a scapegoat, or secretly ally with Overlord Xiao Mao against her mother if Mao is really dead. In the end, Ellen decides the safest move is to get out immediately and hide in the Fate Stadium. She activates the menu and vanishes from the tent, escaping her mother's reach for now. Back in Leo's domain that afternoon, he checks the damage after the battle and finds most buildings repaired except for a few badly burned knowledge sites. At Hua Jiashan's burned library, Leo sees the books and treasures are completely gone and realizes his people now need new cultivation manuals. He knows he could rewrite stronger techniques from the elite clones he defeated, but the thought of spending a month writing books makes him instantly miserable. That pushes him to recheck his mall facilities, and he remembers the new 4th floor additions might solve the problem another way. The new casino catches his eye first, a lifespan gambling hall that seals customers' chi so nobody can cheat with cultivation power. But Leo is more interested in the boot camp, because if it can train foundations, maybe it can also pass his techniques to rookies for him. Meanwhile, with the invasion scare over, ordinary life floods back into the shopping mall almost immediately. Some homeless slum residents stay in the lower floors, others return to rebuild, and plenty of desperate civilians start buying cheap grain pills to gamble on becoming cultivators. The risk mostly pays off, so the mall ends up packed with fresh new cultivators who no longer want to leave. At least the smarter disciples spread out to cultivate near the pylon tower instead of choking the whole population into one building. When Leo returns to the mall, the elevators are jammed and the whole 4th floor is buzzing with lines for the casino, time chamber, and boot camp. Seeing the business boom, Leo gets smug and happily imagines a future where he can relax at home while everyone else makes money for him. Then he steps into the military boot camp and finds a whole separate training world hidden inside. Inside, 100 wearing a simple torn shirt male employees sit in strict formation trying to meditate while 3 mannequin drill sergeants stalk around them with wooden sticks and killing intent. One trainee gets distracted by Leo's arrival, and a mannequin instantly smacks him and unloads a brutally obscene lecture about discipline and lust. Leo pretends not to react, but the scene proves the mannequins really can teach people on their own. He calls one drill sergeant over and asks what kind of cultivation method this camp is using. The answer is gloriously awful. The default Floridian's mind method seals chi and puts trainees through push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, a 10-kilometer run, and alligator wrestling. When Leo asks about the meditation, the mannequin explains the men are only recovering after being forced to drink hope and dream pill water before the next G-less brawl. Leo asks how long the course lasts, and the mannequin proudly says the training never stops until the recruits meet its standard. He gives up trying to make the regime humane, but he does realize he can rewrite the camp's cultivation method. The system opens a boot camp settings menu with sliders for training intensity, and a list of every technique Leo has learned. Leo leaves the torture sliders alone and goes hunting through the list for a technique even untalented people can actually grow with. He settles on Ocean King breathing, a balanced method from Overlord Xiao Mao that even untalented cultivators can use and that can reach Sage Realm without a bottleneck. The moment he applies it, the mannequins get the update and announce to the trainees that the Lord has granted them a rare cultivation method. The exhausted trainees look at Leo in shock and gratitude, and he just waves them off with a smug little good luck before leaving them to the drill sergeants. The trainees try to salute him like soldiers, and the mannequins immediately bonk them back into line. Outside again, Leo notes the time chamber's simple 10 years of lifespan fee and realizes the boot camp probably needs more upgrades if he wants faster turnover. Then his attention shifts to the Tavern of Heroes, and he remembers its real value. This place can invite fellow players into his domain. Thinking of Akka the Orc, Leo heads for the tavern, ready to finally ask another player for help with the invasion problem. At the tavern counter, the receptionist mannequins bow to Leo as he opens the facility menu and finally checks the friend system Aku once mentioned. Leo tries to search for Aku, hoping a trusted orc ally might be safer to contact than strangers from other worlds. The search tool is a disaster, drowning him in endless near matches until Leo is staring at page after page of people named Justa. After his rant about people having terrible names, Leo gives up on finding Aku that way. He asks the receptionists what else the tavern can do, and they silently point him toward a hidden staircase behind the counter. Upstairs, Leo finds that the tavern opens into its own separate dimension instead of connecting to the mall's next floor. The strange place looks peaceful but wrong, and Leo relaxes only after confirming the stairs home are still there. In the middle of the grassland, two Aztec-like stone pyramids catch Leo's eye and pull him deeper inside. Leo jumps onto one pyramid and discovers hidden stairs leading into the structure. Inside, the rough stone shell hides a shockingly luxurious modern suite built for high-end guests. A large rug in the lobby hides a magic circle, and when Leo uncovers it, the system tells him this room is meant for inviting friends. Since his friend list is still empty, Leo leaves the suite and starts wondering if the grassland itself could be useful for farming or development. He tests the idea by placing an RV near the pyramid, but the tavern immediately warns that anything not part of the facility gets cleaned out at midnight. Disappointed, Leo stores the RV again and leaves the tavern dimension, knowing he still cannot bring Aku over safely. Back outside, Leo stops dwelling on Aku and checks the two major system buildings he has not built yet. The menus make it obvious he missed the answer to Phase 3 all along, and Leo smacks his forehead for wasting time. He builds both structures in the newly opened northern area, placing them beside the eastern road as a new pair of landmarks. The Fate Crystal Radar appears first as an Eiffel Tower-like structure crowned with a floating blue crystal that sends transparent waves through the air. A short distance away, the Altar of War rises as a massive stepped pyramid with a huge magic circle carved across its roof platform. Leo upgrades both buildings as far as he can, pouring the altar's points into distance while keeping transfer capacity low because he plans to raid alone. At level 15, the radar spawns 5 operator mannequins, and one formally tells Leo the skin should return results within a day. Leo lets the radar team work and heads straight for the altar, already grinning at the idea of looting another player's world. The altar finally gives him a target menu, but with his current range he can only reach players within 13 million light years. That short range still finds 2 familiar names, and Leo pauses when he sees Overlord Max and Overlord Milo on the list. He taps Overlord Max first, and the status screen reveals a dead conqueror who once controlled 35 planets. The real hook is the warning: if Leo invades a dead player's base, that player's allies will be alerted and allowed to rush in for the claim. A follow-up tip makes the gamble worth it by promising that if Leo destroys the headquarters first, the whole dead domain converts into gacha tickets. That is all the incentive he needs, so Leo confirms the invasion without hesitation. A small rainbow portal opens above the altar, and Leo leaps straight in before it can fade. He lands on a stone cliff in a dead world full of dust, methane stink, and orange clouds that block the light and keep the wasteland unnaturally cold. The air is foul enough that Leo immediately pushes out a blue chi barrier to filter dust and keep himself breathing clean. With his barrier expanded and senses stretched out, Leo finally detects a massive colony far ahead under a protective dome. Guessing that distant settlement is his target, Leo takes off and flies straight toward it. As he nears the orange clouds, the planet itself answers by throwing orange lightning at him. The strikes barely tingle, so Leo changes plans on the spot and starts devouring the storm clouds as free fuel. Inside his Danteon, the orange gas feeds his Tribulation Lightning Star, and the system starts handing him lifespan gains for the harvest. But stripping away the clouds exposes the world to 2 colossal suns, and the methane atmosphere immediately starts turning into a planetary firestorm. Leo shrugs off the chaos as the planets fault and keeps flying while the inferno races behind him. By the time he reaches the colony, every spotlight locks onto him and red alarms start flashing under the dome. Hidden sentry guns rise from the ground and open fire, but Leo decides to stand there and test what this alien defense can actually do. For half an hour, anti-tank and armor-piercing rounds flatten harmlessly against his skin until the guns finally run dry. Instead of getting angry, Leo cheerfully vacuums up the spent metal and starts thinking about turning the loot into better weapons for his own side. Up close, the target is even stranger. The whole colony is a giant mobile structure with metal spider legs and continuous tracks. A huge shutter door opens, and a giant wolf leads out 50 werewolves in sci-fi battlesuits to meet the intruder face to face. Leo's attention locks onto their oversized blades, and his interest spikes when the werewolves switch them on, and the swords reveal themselves as roaring chainsaws. The werewolves bark insults in their own language and clearly single Leo out as an enemy before rushing him. A pack of them surrounds Leo and hacks at him with the vibrating saw swords, but the blades jam the instant they hit his body. Leo immediately steals 2 of the stuck weapons into storage, leaving their owners staring at empty hands in shock. When the shouting gets louder, Leo escalates by touching one soldier's armor and stripping the whole battle suit off him in one instant. Leo briefly admires the dead soldier's golden fur as crafting material, decides he wants to preserve it, and shoots the wolf in the head with his pistol. He tries to stash the corpse, notices his rings are already crammed with loot, and finally uses the system inventory instead. The system accepts the Fenrir carcass and reveals a useful new rule: stored items can be sent straight back to his shopping mall warehouse. The moment Leo spots armored werewolves in a colony full of gear, he stops thinking about caution and sees nothing but fresh loot. He lunges straight at them, yelling that this is a robbery, and demands their wallets, clothes, and meat, turning the raid into his kind of madness. An elder in a suit steps into the airtight corridor and finds Leo already humming to himself while grabbing bulky spacesuits and swords to resell later. The colony answers by sealing him in with descending steel shutters and pumping the room full of green poison gas. Instead of panicking, Leo sniffs the gas, compares it to mustard gas and monster breath, and decides this poison is disappointingly mild. The gas barely tingles, so Leo shamelessly asks for more like he just found a decent smoke. He tries to stash the floating gas directly in his inventory, but the system rejects it because only solid materials count as items. That failure pulls Leo into a hazy childhood memory of glass-walled rooms, white-coated strangers, and being forced to inhale odd gases from balloons. Feeling nostalgic, he buys 1,000 balloons from the system shop and starts packing the poison gas into them one by one. Once the gas is sealed in rubber, the inventory finally accepts it as a soul-corrupting balloon, which Leo immediately treats like future smoking material. He even starts planning some awful ultimate joint with immortal grass and sweet dream mushrooms while the colony cameras keep watching him waste an hour. When the vents finally stop the gas and switch to sticky liquid, Leo just looks down and wonders if the next trap is oil, tar, or another drug. Far out in space, a surviving battleship jumps through a portal as Overlord Milo personally arrives to claim or defend Overlord Max's world. Milo reads the raid alert again and again because if he repels the invader, Max's domain, perks, and assets could all become his. As an experienced overlord, Milo quickly decides the usual rule still applies here. Hold the base for 24 hours, and the invader loses hard. He launches 100 shielded observation drones into the orange world to scout the situation from every direction. The drones reveal a dying wasteland under endless tribulation lightning, with only one colony still standing after Max let this mortal world collapse. Milo teleports onto the colony expecting civilians, but what he sees instead is a mountain of corpses outside Max's manor, and nothing worth calling a living population. He jumps inside the colony, turns into his giant Fenrir form, and confronts 12 werewolf sages gathered in Max's front yard. The sages claim they came to protect the headquarters after Max died, but Milo instantly hears the lie in that answer. Fresh corpses and active looting all over the city tell Milo the truth. These werewolves came on their own, slaughtered the locals, and stole everything without triggering a proper raid alert. When Milo calls them hyena thieves, the sages finally drop the act and argue that Max's property should pass to fellow Fenrirs, not just to him. Milo answers by dragging a long black flame sword out of his own throat and threatening to butcher them and their families unless they hand over every ring and item. The sages refuse to kneel, and just as Milo is about to strike, a huge explosion rips through the colony entrance and interrupts everything. Out of the dust rises Leo, brushing off his clothes and complaining that he only wanted some good smoke before the wolves started firing rockets at him. As he looks over the city, Leo realizes this alien colony resembles a dead modern metropolis, except every road is dark, wrecked, and soaked in blood. The ugliest sight waits in a supermarket parking lot, where a dead mother werewolf still clutches 3 crying puppies beside dropped groceries and a bone plush toy. That massacre disgusts Leo enough to forget the raid for a moment, and rush straight down to save the pups. The puppies bare their tiny fangs at him, so Leo remembers his dangerous touch and hurriedly puts on a hazmat suit before trying again. Even inside the suit he has to wrestle with 3 scared little werewolves that feel more like fat golden retriever puppies than monsters. Since words do nothing, Leo drops them, pulls out a dead cockatrice, and starts tearing off meat to bribe them with food. The smell works instantly, and one puppy creeps toward Leo wagging its tail even though it still has no idea who he is. Leo catches himself being hypocritical, but he admits he still cannot walk away from children left to die like this. To buy time for the rescue, Leo snaps his fingers and freezes the entire star system with Overlord Meow Meow Meow's time and space domain. With time stopped, he sprints into the blood-stained supermarket looking for something the puppies can actually digest. The store is half wrecked, but the familiar layout still lets Leo find dog milk near the alcohol aisle. Then he notices 5 werewolves frozen mid-loot around the booze aisle, smugly stuffing wine into their spatial rings. Leo actually approves of their apocalypse priorities, so under frozen time he steals their rings and gives each looter a light punch that will kill them once time resumes. After that, Leo copies their idea exactly and sweeps up the entire booze section before grabbing all the dog milk too. He gets so absorbed in shopping under frozen time that a whole hour passes before he finally returns to the parking lot. Back with the puppies, Leo sets out bowls, pours dog milk, and crushes the cockatrice meat into tiny pieces so they will not choke. The instant time starts moving again, the 5 looters die from their delayed head blows, and the puppies jump at the sudden bowls appearing in front of them. Leo tells the pups to eat because he is taking them home, and hunger wins over fear immediately. They cough on the tiny meat at first, so Leo quietly checks them with chi until he is sure they are safe. Once the bowls are clean, Leo tells the wary puppies he will be back shortly and turns away to finish the raid. That is when Leo senses a new aura overhead, like Oslin's but weaker, and looks up to find a giant Fenrir powerhouse hovering above the ruined city. Overlord Milo points his black sword at Leo and demands the stranger's name and reason for attacking this domain. Leo, already in a foul mood, tells him to mind his own business and leave while he still can. Milo misreads him completely, decides anyone who protects puppies cannot be the invader, and magnanimously tells Leo to go home because he is taking over the domain himself. Leo immediately mocks the speech as cliché villain nonsense, which only makes Milo turn back and rant harder. Milo warns that Queen Eleanor will one day purge and unite the universe, so Leo's kind is doomed and should treasure what little time they have left. That one useful tip changes Leo's mood, and instead of killing Milo on the spot, he thanks him and decides to spare him for now. Before Milo can process that insult, Leo snaps his fingers and freezes time a second time. Then he layers a Death Sword domain over the frozen colony and marks every massacre-stained werewolf inside as a target. Leo removes the upper part of the hazmat suit, turns his tiny pen sword into a lightsaber, and swings once to cut the souls of all 300 guilty werewolves at once. With the killers already finished, Leo flies toward Max's manor when his alien ring suddenly starts guiding him to the real objective. He feeds more chi into the weapon, reshapes the lightsaber into a giant energy hammer, and smashes down on the hidden barrier protecting the headquarters. The barrier folds and the entire manor headquarters is destroyed in one hit. As soon as Leo restarts time, the system confirms the headquarters is gone, there was no treasure left to steal, and everyone on his side will be teleported home in 10 seconds. The whole colony starts shaking and dissolving into dust, and Milo can only stare in disbelief at how instantly everything slipped out of his hands. Leo returns to the parking lot, scoops up the 3 puppies, and smiles like he already won more than the raid was worth. Before the teleport takes him, Leo calls Milo a racist bitch, says he will be at the Fate Stadium soon, and tells him to book a match there if he wants to see him again. Milo lunges too late as Leo and the rescued puppies vanish together, leaving him with nothing but a ruined claim and a future grudge. Max's ruined colony collapses into dust, leaving only scattered supplies and the dead behind, and Overlord Milo finally realizes a Kingdom System player caused it. Milo curses New Earth for wrecking the operation, then bitterly blames the dead hyena werewolves for getting greedy and ruining their chance to split the city's loot. Still fuming, Milo sweeps up the corpses and salvage into his storage ring, shifts back into a humanoid werewolf form, and returns to his battleship. Back on the bridge, Milo orders his soldiers to head for the 7th Princess's rendezvous point so they can rebuild with her fleet. The battleship fires 7 laser beams to tear open a wormhole, then vanishes into warp. A day later, Milo arrives beside a massive war fleet of artificial planets, giant cubic motherships, and countless battleships, and his own ship suddenly looks tiny. Milo admits the 7th Princess is terrifyingly war-hungry and powerful enough to look like Queen Eleanor's successor. But the thought of reporting to her wipes the smugness off his face, because he remembers how casually she kills subordinates, and worries he might be next. Meanwhile, Leo returns to his own domain with the 3 orphaned puppies and appears at the altar of war before Milo even finishes his trip. The system congratulates Leo for raiding another player's home, then immediately slaps the altar of war with a brutal 360-day maintenance cooldown. That absurd timer makes Leo realize just how valuable cooldown reduction on this building really is. Then the bigger reward lands. Leo clears Phase 3 of the Entity Fate Crystal Quest, including the invasion and defense milestones he just finished. The completed phase showers him with rewards, 300,000 more years of lifespan, higher building caps, an SR building ticket, and a new top-up feature. Leo instantly latches onto the words top-up and gets excited for exactly the wrong reason, ready to whale the gacha if the system takes lifespan. When he opens the feature, Leo sees his lifespan balance, and nearly jumps because he has over 16 million years saved up. Feeling suddenly rich, he spots a flashing plus icon beside the premium currency box and opens the recharge menu. The exchange rates pop up, and Leo gets his first look at how much lifespan this fake phone game economy wants for e-crystals. He pokes at another tab hoping for better value, only to learn the promotion feature is still locked behind later quest progress. Already suspicious the system is scamming him, Leo buys a 10,000 e-crystal pack anyway just to test it. With premium currency ready, Leo heads to the gacha page and checks his stash of saved tickets for building and servant roles. He starts with the free building tickets first, all smug confidence and gambler's hype. 66 rolls later, the smile is dead because Leo gets nothing but common junk and 6 rares, not a single SR building. The bad luck hits a nerve, and Leo explodes at the cursed gacha like an old wound just reopened. A childhood flashback crashes into him, the same helpless anger from wasting all his allowance on a game and still missing the prize. This time, though, adult Leo steadies himself with one dangerous thought: he has money now, so he can keep pulling. Then he checks the paid price for a building gacha roll and almost coughs blood, because 110 plus 1 costs 16,000 e-crystals. Leo rants at the outrageous pricing and compares the system to the worst cash grab game companies he can imagine. Even after that, he talks himself into spending a little more since he is already close to another discounted 10 plus 1. Then habit takes over and he accidentally buys another full 10,000 crystal package when he only needed a small amount. 1 second later, the mistake lands, and Leo breaks down over the lifespan he just wasted. After a few miserable minutes, Leo gives up on building luck for now and switches to the mannequin gacha because he wants more workers instead. He burns the servant tickets with no expectations, and the result is exactly that: 10 gray pulls and 1 blue. The summons turn into 10 mannequin workers and 1 cashier, and Leo mechanically sends them off to work without any fanfare. With the gacha disaster over, Leo scoops up the confused puppies and trudges back toward his bus, too drained to care about anything else. He never notices his people are already hauling broken drones, jets, and battleship wreckage into the junkyard around the domain. Inside the bus bedroom, Leo finds Izan already asleep in his bed in the middle of the afternoon and quietly judges how lazy that looks. Since he still needs someone to care for the orphan pups, Leo steps back outside to look for help. He spots Yao Chichi wandering the parking lot, calls her over, and she lights up the moment she sees the puppies. Yao Chichi immediately asks if she can keep them, and Leo realizes the monster tamer is probably the right person for the job anyway. So Leo entrusts the 3 puppies to Yao Chichi, gives feeding instructions, and quietly tells her they just lost their parents. The pups respond to Yao Chichi's affection right away, licking her face until she laughs and decides they already like her. Leo tells her to bring them to her master, and Yao Chichi cheerfully flies off with all 3 puppies. Finally alone and wiped out, Leo cleans up, crawls into bed, and just wants to sleep beside Izan. Izan wakes just enough to notice he only came home to cuddle and rest, and that small thing makes her quietly happy. She snuggles closer, rubs her scent onto him like a cat, and whispers a soft welcome home to her husband-to-be. In Fate Stadium's luxury suite, the 7th princess hears Milo report that Max's headquarters was destroyed by a random player, and reacts with sharp disbelief. Milo explains that the enemy was a mysterious Fate crystal bearer with a kingdom-building system and strength too dangerous to chase blindly. The princess coldly dismisses every reason as an excuse, making it clear that failure matters more to her than circumstances. Milo finally pushes back, arguing that throwing away an entity just to satisfy her pride would be idiotic when other overlords are already moving against them. Instead of punishing him, the princess says the cruelty was a test and seems pleased Milo is not just another bootlicker. Then the princess seals the suite inside a black soundproof domain, showing the real conversation is only starting now. Inside the sealed room, the princess says her mother will soon summon her back to the palace, and she calls that order an obvious trap. When Milo questions her, the princess bluntly says her mother wants to destroy her soul and take her body and Dantian. Milo is thrown off, and the princess starts explaining that Queen Eleanor was crippled by karma after devouring too many souls. She explains that fate crystals now reject Eleanor, so the queen turned to older and darker research to escape that dead end. She says her mother once sold obsolete technology to weaker races and planted divine elf colonies across many worlds, including Earth. Those colonies were told to stay permanently, and some divine elves married locals and had mixed-blood children there. Then the story turns monstrous. The queen tricked overlords into giving blood essence, and had labs try to clone it. Milo is stunned because cloning that blood should have been impossible, and the princess says one man somehow made it work. Mao meow meow. The princess gleefully recounts how Mao demanded Eleanor's own blood and even asked to become one of her consorts before pushing the research further. With Eleanor's approval, the project turned monstrous as Earth children were kidnapped and used in diluted overlord blood experiments. Out of 100 million children, only 2 survived, and the princess produces an old photo to show Milo the test subjects. Looking at the photo, Milo realizes one boy became Esther's husband, while the green-eyed boy reminds him of Ohio Man and the old man he saw recently. When Milo asks about the green-eyed boy, the princess reveals that 20 years later Mao Meow Meow transferred his soul into that body and stole it. She says the breakthrough thrilled Eleanor so much that the queen wiped out Earth's population, took Mao as a consort, and eventually birthed the devil race with him. That history leads to the point. The princess says her mother finished the body transfer research and now needs a vessel strong enough to hold the karmic sovereign's soul. Milo finally connects the dots and realizes the vessel Eleanor wants is Ellen herself. She refuses to return and die for her mother's obsession with youth, so she decides to turn this whole mobilization into her rebellion. Her plan is to use these forces to ally with the Cathal Hasside and Overlord Xiao Mao, leaving Milo shaken by how far she means to go. Then the princess invites someone waiting outside to come in, calling him her brother-in-law. The door opens, and the man entering is Simba in human form, reporting himself with the alias mercenary Ohio Man. The princess orders Milo and Simba to work together, lead her fleet toward the Cathal sector, and surrender with a white flag as soon as contact is made. Far back in Florida Domain's junkyard, wrecked ships and metal scrap pile up as workers begin sorting through the alien remains. Wu Bai and Tang Xian throw themselves into the salvage work, digging through alien wreckage for useful metal like obsessed researchers. While digging through ruined suits and containers, the 2 alchemists uncover several abandoned storage rings. Even with a chance to pocket the loot, either man keeps it, and they pass the rings to mannequins to send to Leo. Soon after, Ivy's team drags in a half-destroyed battleship and drops it beside the junkyard, where part of the wreck sinks into the cooling lava field without melting. Mark and Beatrice stare at the wreck in silence, because they recognize the divine elf battleship immediately. Mark admits he once dreamed of piloting ships like that as a child, before divine elf racism crushed the idea and shoved him into knighthood instead. Their memories lead into the uglier truth of the Malgs, a white-haired, fang-bearing mixed race long treated by divine elves as expendable slaves. Everything changed when little Izan became an immortal, bought most of the Malg population out of slavery, and gave them a planet of their own. Mark and Beatrice became fiercely loyal to Izan for that rescue, which made her later downfall hit even harder. Then came the betrayal. Esther framed Izan, Eleanor killed and cursed her, and Izan's followers were dragged into undeath with her. Remembering all that only deepens their gratitude toward Leo, because he is the one who saved Eason again and brought them back. So instead of dwelling on the past, Mark pushes forward and suggests finding another recoverable battleship somewhere south. At the same time, the entire Yen Dynasty planet starts changing as rainbow auroras flare over both poles and the global temperature suddenly drops. The cold spreads fast enough to freeze part of the sea and push the snowy regions much closer to the equator. This is not just weather anymore, because Densien Chi is saturating the planet as if an ice age is trying to force its way in. Deep below, the planet's core shifts from white to rainbow as the extreme yang qi from the atmosphere sinks downward and condenses inside it. As that trapped yang heat rises, rock and minerals begin melting under the crust and lava starts forcing its way through underground cracks. Soon volcanoes on land and under the sea erupt one after another, blasting molten earth across the planet. Where the planet's extreme yin and yang crash together, the energies condense into hail-like stones that fall as naturally formed essence stones. But the catastrophe is so violent that local cultivators cannot take advantage of the treasure, and instead flee the freezing air and erupting mountains for safer ground. One of the warmer refuges is Leo's domain 3,000 kilometers north of the equator, and that means the coming wave of extreme cold is heading straight for him next. After a full night's sleep, Leo strolls through the junkyard and finds his salvage operation paid off big. The mannequins have hauled in 2 wrecked battleships, but the ships are so massive they have to be stored outside the junkyard. To keep the wrecks from sinking into the lava field, the elves and Malgs freeze part of it into a makeshift storage platform. Leo carries chunks of ship hull up to the mall's 5th floor and feeds them straight into the blacksmith mannequin's workshop. The system identifies the refined material as Styx blood metal and Styx blood ore, which means new armor can now be made. He asks what the strange metal does, but the blacksmith mannequins ignore him and just keep feeding immortal coal into the furnace. More junkyard workers rush in with fresh ship scraps, and Leo stays to watch what the workshop will turn them into. A few minutes later, the mangled scraps come out as neat dark ingots, and the mannequins hand Leo a sample. Leo tests the ingot with his bare hand, hoping for one of his usual mutations, but this metal gives him nothing at all. Since the metal tells him nothing, Leo shifts focus and upgrades the entire shopping mall and every facility to level 17. A new construction notice pops up, and Leo immediately decides to fill the mall's empty slots with more production buildings. He mass builds alchemy workshops, blacksmith shops, clothing stores, gunsmiths, and fast food restaurants until 60 new facilities are packed into the mall. The expansion boosts production hard, but it also creates a new problem almost instantly. 30 weaver mannequins swarm Leo and bluntly demand flesh and blood to stock the new clothing stores. Cursing under his breath, Leo bites into his own arms and tears off transparent flesh so the weavers can use it. The mannequins snatch up his flesh and march back to their stores, already copying clothing designs without needing any more instructions. By midnight, Leo finally drops to the floor to recover, and his wounds heal fast even though the pain still nags at him. He barely gets a break before the new alchemy mannequins crowd around him too, pressing for orders with glowing red eyes. Giving in, Leo assigns all 10 new workshops to convert stored essence stones into soul stones. The alchemists race off for supplies, but Leo's relief lasts about 1 breath before the blacksmiths, gunsmiths, and cooks all box him in for tasks too. By 3 a.m., a sweaty Leo finally reaches the rooftop after assigning every new workshop its job and placing orders for better weapons and armor. He especially wants stronger firearms, because the old M16 prototype underperformed and too many people are still carrying obsolete flintlocks. Then the system interrupts him with a blunt warning that the new restaurants already lack ingredients. The shortage is worse than he expected, with different fast food branches already missing key dishes and supplies before they can even operate properly. Leo rushes down to the underground warehouse and finds the shelves half empty. The vegetables can be regrown, but the real disaster is the meat section, where the thunder alligator and cockatrice stock is completely gone. That shortage makes Leo wish he had an agriculture partner, because buying food straight from the system would be absurdly expensive. Then he spots a solution in one of his newly unlocked buildings, a trade center meant for merchants and shipping. Leo immediately builds the trade center on the 4th floor, upgrades it to level 17, and decides to test it at once. When Leo steps inside, he is stunned to find that the trade center is not a shop at all but a full airport hidden inside the mall. 5 female receptionist mannequins rise from the floor and calmly welcome Leo as their master. They explain that this airport links directly to the Orlando realm, and is designed to hide his world's true location while controlling who can enter his domain. When Leo asks how outsiders could ever become customers, the mannequins tell him he can issue visas to people he trusts. Before he can ask much more, a spaceship suddenly lands at the airport, and Leo recognizes it as the same model he once reserved at Fate's Stadium. 100 armed space soldiers spill out first to secure the runway, and then their commander appears in a bulky armored spacesuit. Leo checks their strength, realizes they are just immortals with railguns, and walks out to meet them without much fear. The commander adjusts his system for language, lowers his weapon, and introduces himself with the alias Caesar Ballers from planet United Nations. When Leo asks if they are from Earth, the commander says Earth was only their distant mother planet, and their people left it tens of thousands of years ago. The commander turns the question back on him, and Leo grins and names himself as Florida Man, the last survivor from Earth. The commander is intrigued, but Leo quickly realizes their version of Earth history has drifted so far that even the USA is unknown to them. Philip explains that the old nations collapsed once cultivation spread, and to Leo's disbelief he says the modern UN is led by Poland. Leo drops the history lesson and lays down his own rule instead. For security, only 5 delegates can enter his Florida domain. The commander accepts, formally gives his real name as Lieutenant General Philip Petrosky, and chooses 4 companions to go with him. The rest of the soldiers try to follow anyway and slam into an invisible barrier at the terminal entrance. As they walk together, the visitors remove their helmets in respect and finally show their faces. Once they step out of the airport, the delegates stare around in surprise at the modern shopping mall hidden inside Leo's domain. Philip quickly notices the impossible interior space and guesses that Leo is a rare master of time and space arrays. Philip admits that kind of cultivation was monopolized by top officials in his world, supposedly to stop civilization from tearing itself apart. Leo brings the delegation to the Tavern of Heroes, arranges them a suite, and decides to push straight into negotiations. Philip gets to the point too. His people want to buy soul stones because their technology is weak and their ships still rely on them for space travel. When Leo asks how they plan to pay, Philip has Andrea project their cargo list from her smartwatch as a hologram. The ship mostly has blue lumber, gold, saplings, fertilizer, and vegetables, and Leo is only interested in the food. Philip can only offer 10 tons of vegetables per soul stone and admits they can afford at most 3, which is nowhere near enough for what they need. So Philip tries a riskier offer and asks if Leo would accept payment in lifespan instead. Leo proves he can judge that trade by showing Philip's age and remaining lifespan on a visible status screen. That shocks the delegation, and Andrea blurts out the real reason: Leo is a system user. Once Leo confirms it, Philip drops his guard completely and begs to buy a large supply of soul stones with their lifespan. Leo names a wholesale price of 1,000 years of lifespan per soul stone, far cheaper than his normal rate but still painfully steep. Philip's group checks their own lifespans, realizes the cost is brutal, and starts whispering through the math anyway. They conclude that if all 5,000 crew members each sacrifice 1,000 or 2,000 years, they could secure 10,000 soul stones and keep their world going for ages. Philip asks if the crew can pay collectively, and Leo agrees as long as they willingly give up that lifespan themselves. Andrea immediately heads back to the ship to persuade the crew, while Leo and Philip stay behind and trade stories about their worlds. 4 hours later, Andrea has mostly talked the crew into it, with only a few holdouts forced in line by Philip's authority. On her way back from the ship, Andrea suddenly runs into Hua Taishu as he comes out of the time chamber after training other people. Hua Taishu instantly pegs her as strong and bluntly tries to recruit her for training, but Andrea apologizes because she is busy. Before leaving, Andrea asks if he is connected to the legendary sword saint Hua Taishu, because she recognizes the name from her people's history. Hua Taishu lights up, proudly claims he is Hua Taishu's shadow, and gets even more excited to drag her into training. Andrea barely gets out a confused protest before Hua Taishu grabs her hand and yanks her straight into the time chamber. He locks the facility behind them, and without Andrea's return, Leo and Philip end up waiting all day with no idea where she went. Leo waits in the tavern lobby with Philip and the others, already annoyed that Andrea has been missing for so long. When Philip suggests going to find her, Leo stays calm and says he can still sense Andrea's life force, so she is probably just distracted somewhere nearby. Andrea finally returns with Hua Taishu, and the real shock is that both of them have already reached the deity realm. Andrea nervously reports her breakthrough to Leo, and Philip tries to gauge her strength only to realize he cannot read it at all. Hua Taishu barges in grinning, brags that he is strong now, and shoves his cup of fate crystal holy water at Leo while begging to become even stronger. Leo opens Hua Taishu's status and finds a dangerous upgrade loop: 1 drop of holy water and 1,000 YO per star, with no visible cap on how many stars this shadow can stack. When Leo asks how many stars he wants, Hua Taishu can only beam and say many, which tells Leo this bottomless project could devour absurd amounts of lifespan. Leo still decides to invest hard, warning Hua Taishu to work harder for him, and he forces the shadow all the way up to a 1,000-star deity. The upgrade leaves Hua Taishu bulkier and terrifyingly powerful, but it also snaps his karmic tie to the original owner of that soul shadow. A second alert hits immediately after. The original Hua Taishu has sensed Leo and sent him a friend request. Leo accepts out of curiosity, and the friend portrait that appears is not this dumb muscle shadow at all but a younger, sharper-looking Hua Taishu. Pulled back to business by Philip, Leo takes the payment, promises to fetch the soul stones, and drags Hua Taishu away because this clone problem needs answers now. While Leo is gone, Philip corners Andrea and asks what happened yesterday that let her jump all the way into the deity realm. Andrea explains that a strange old man pulled her into a space-time array where she felt trapped for more than a year, even though barely any normal time had passed outside. That answer leaves Philip stunned and the whole group eager to try the same place once their trade with Leo is finished. Away from the others, Leo directly asks his summoned Hua Taishu why a second Hua Taishu just contacted him. Hua Taishu bluntly explains that he is only a living shadow clone, while the real Hua Taishu died before being reborn as a baby again. The answer clears up part of the mystery for Leo, but it also makes him wonder whether other strange cases around him, like Sierra's, might follow the same reincarnation logic. Then the real Hua Taishu finally messages Leo and accuses him of exploiting his clone and endangering his hidden reincarnated life. The real Hua Taishu says he is only recently reborn and close to becoming a sage, so boosting the clone's power may have exposed him to old enemies who know that face. Leo argues that the clone is not really him, but the original fires back that a shadow with his old face still damages his reputation and safety. Feeling a little guilty, Leo apologizes and invites the real Hua Taishu to meet him at Fate's Stadium because he has something to pass along to Hua Jiashan. With that side issue parked for later, Leo heads to the alchemy workshops because Philip's soul stone order cannot wait. The 5th floor workshops are running so hard that the trainee alchemists look dizzy, but the production line is exactly the kind of madness Leo wanted. Leo learns the upgraded workshops can turn essence stones into soul stones at a ridiculous rate, 50 soul stones per cauldron instead of the usual one for every 1,000 essence stones. Even with that absurd efficiency, 10 workshops only give him 2,500 giant soul stones a day, so he realizes Philip's full order will still take several days. Back in the lobby, Leo hands over the first batch and tells Philip the full transfer of 10,000 soul stones will take about 4 days. Philip checks the ring, sees how potent the soul stones are, and instantly decides they will happily wait as long as needed. Once the others see the stones too, their mood flips completely from impatient to thrilled because these are far better than anything they expected. Since they are stuck here for days anyway, Philip asks if they can explore Leo's domain, and especially the strange training facility that changed Andrea overnight. Leo agrees at once, tells them the mannequins can guide them, and casually warns that some places charge lifespan as the entry fee. Philip also brings up the vegetables on their ship, and Leo agrees to trade for those too before they spoil, which makes this whole visit even more profitable for them. After sending the visitors off to explore, Leo finally turns to his own reward pile and decides it is time to use his gacha ticket and premium currency. Inside his bus, Leo spreads his collected fate crystals all over the bed like Lucky Charms and kneels down to pray for a good pull. He spends 16,000 premium currency on 11 building pulls and keeps his eyes closed at first because he is too nervous to face the result. Then he peeks and sees one rainbow ball, and a second later realizes there are actually 2. The WR hit nearly stops Leo's heart, and he starts freaking out with pure greedy joy. That luck clearly costs something, because Leo suddenly notices 2 of his sky fate crystals have crumbled into dust on the bed. He panics, gathers the rest of the crystals in a hurry, and only relaxes after confirming that nothing else broke. When he finally calms down and checks the rewards, the 2 UR buildings turn out to be portals, one to a cow level and one to an agriculture realm. The words cow level hit Leo especially hard, and he starts laughing like a madman while imagining a whole realm full of bizarre battle cows. Wanting answers before he tests anything, Leo rushes to the Mystic Realm platform where Meow Meow, Lucky, and Mooniang are waiting as usual. Leo studies them in a new light after the Hua Taishu incident and bluntly asks which super experts these so-called shadows are actually copied from. Lucky answers first and openly claims he comes from Overlord Lucky, while Mooniang calmly says his essence traces back to Overlord Mustafa of the Cathalhu. Meow Meow adds that he comes from Overlord Mao Meow Meow, and through him Leo also confirms that Aslan traces back to Overlord Xiao Mao. That still leaves the real problem, so Leo asks why these clone-like beings call themselves his shadows and how they are connected to him at all. Lucky gives the blunt answer. Leo carries everyone's bloodline and is himself a creation tied to those super experts. Leo goes silent for a long time, trying to digest what that means about his own origin. Lucky keeps going and says Leo was once incomplete until his soul fused with the entity fate crystal left by his parents, which broke the bloodline curse and made him stronger than the stolen original body. Lucky also warns that the Guardians are not independent beings at all, because their power fades if they get too far from Leo and all of them are tied to his karmic river. Once Lucky points it out, Leo can actually see those invisible ties and reaches out to touch the one linked to Meow Meow. The moment he touches it, Leo sees into Meow Meow's senses and memories from back on Earth when Leo was still an incomplete mutant being hammered by tribulation lightning. He learns that when he reached the threshold of nascent soul, he did not awaken a normal nascent soul at all, and instead Aslan, Meow Meow, Lucky, and Mooniang were born inside him. The memory shows those 4 each taking a different piece of Leo's bloodline, but the entity fate crystal suppressed them because their growth could have destroyed his body early. Over time they absorbed knowledge and power from their bloodline donors, copied portions of those experts, and became strong enough to match them without ever becoming fully independent. Meow Meow turns out to be the most rebellious one, secretly training his own Danteon universe while Leo was still on Earth, and even choosing 3 wives for himself. The Guardians also spent that free time peeking at Leo's possible futures, and Meow Meow saw both Leo marrying Izan and the later disaster where Dr. Mao Meow Meow stole his body. Leo pulls back from the memory and asks the others if any of them saw more of his future. Mooniang answers with a teasing little prophecy, saying Leo will adopt 2 daughters and should already know which talented girls inside his domain they are. Leo decides that is enough destiny talk for now and gets back to the practical reason he came here in the first place. He constructs both new portals beside the main Mystic Realm gate, a clear barn door frame for the agriculture realm and a buzzing blue oval gate for the cow level. Leo immediately tunes the new buildings to level 17 and pushes points into both worlds so they match his current needs. He chooses to test the agriculture realm first and steps through the clear barn door portal. The moment he arrives, the world's crushing gravity hits him so hard he feels about 50 times heavier than normal. Instead of panicking, Leo reads that pressure as proof he has entered an enormous, high-quality world. The air smells fresh and the grass feels inviting, so Leo takes a few steps and sits down before suddenly remembering he might contaminate the whole place with his radiation. But the environment does not warp at all, and Leo quickly realizes this world is soaked in pure yang-rich life energy that naturally neutralizes his contamination. Relieved, he flies high into the sky to scan the entire realm and see what kind of infrastructure the system actually generated here. For a long stretch he sees nothing but giant trees, flowers, and endless grassland, which makes the place feel almost empty despite its scale. After flying 10,000 kilometers east, Leo finally finds the center of the realm, a colossal castle surrounded by huge farms, fish ponds, pig pens, and chicken barns. Everything here is built at a monstrous scale to survive the gravity, down to 500-meter walls and bricks bigger than pyramid blocks, and that makes Leo immediately think about future materials research. He forces himself not to get distracted, counts the facilities, and confirms that every upgrade point created 100 giant structures instead of just one. When he lands on the castle roof, the system shows this realm has no governor yet and that all crops, fish, pigs, and chickens respawn and mature on a fixed schedule. Leo weighs the governor slot and first decides to move Aslan here while dumping Muniang into the Cayman-filled Orlando realm instead. He returns to the platform and orders Muniang to bring Aslan back and take over Orlando from now on. Muniang is thrilled by the idea of a Cayman buffet, and Leo has to shout after him that his real job is gathering food, materials, and lifespan, not eating everything himself. An hour later Aslan returns, takes one look at Leo's face, and already knows he is about to get assigned another world. Leo starts to appoint him governor of the agriculture realm, but Aslan gently pushes back and warns that Leo will soon run out of trustworthy people to manage all these worlds. Aslan says Sierra would actually fit this realm better, especially if Leo upgrades her into a deity, because his own talents are better suited to fishing karma embryos than managing agriculture. Leo realizes he had completely overlooked Sierra and accepts the suggestion on the spot. So instead of moving Aslan, Leo keeps the fisherman clone on platform duty and summons Sierra to take the new job path instead. When Sierra arrives an hour later, the first thing she asks is exactly what Leo expected, whether he has finally decided to milk her. Leo ignores the bait and tells her he is here to upgrade her into a deity, but Sierra keeps pressing the joke and asks if he wants it straight from the source. Leo does not answer out loud, but his mind immediately drifts into a ridiculous future meme of Sierra sprawled on a couch with 5 nightmare horses around her. Leo brought Sierra into the new agriculture realm, officially making her its governor after boosting her strength to match Hua Taishu. At the castle, Leo finally saw what the realm's respawn feature meant when endless green crops and giant fish-filled ponds had already appeared on their own. The real shock came from the barns, where the realm had spawned livestock as kaiju-sized monsters instead of normal farm animals. The chicks still looked cute up close, but each one was the size of a T-Rex, and their chirps hit like a sonic attack. Sierra flatly told Leo those chickens were not cute, and he could only agree while staring at even worse horrors in the pig pens. Leo stayed to watch longer, and the realm itself answered his question by condensing yang qi into floating pig embryos, fish eggs, and chicken eggs right in the air. He watched newborn livestock rapidly form, hatch, and march into the correct barns and ponds, which made the respawn system instantly clear. Once Leo realized the realm kept generating free livestock by itself, he was delighted and decided to stay a full day to see the final result. While waiting, Leo let Sierra start learning her new authority over the realm instead of just standing beside him. A system screen appeared for Sierra, and after a brief shock she quickly started experimenting with it like a new manager taking over. Sierra renamed the place Tauan Farm, and the realm immediately changed to match her talent by improving livestock quality but slowing their respawn rate. Leo approved the new setup right away, seeing Sierra was a much better fit for this realm than the old fisherman statue governor. 22 hours later, the first batch hit full maturity, and the chickens had become feathered sky monsters bigger than Godzilla. Then the system turned brutal, killing the mature roosters on the spot and butchering them cleanly with invisible force. The hens died too, but each one yielded a radiant golden egg packed with pure yang qi before the meat was neatly processed. The fish and pigs met the same fate, proving the realm was basically an automated giant slaughterhouse as much as a farm. Even the wheat came out wrong for Leo, with each grain the size of a human arm and hard as metal blocks. When Leo wondered how anyone could even grind that into flour, Sierra casually told him to treat it like rice and boil it whole. With the farm business settled, Leo stepped back out and found warehouse workers already lined up to haul away the absurd harvest. He doubted the portal could handle chunks of kaiju meat, but the workers proved him wrong when the gate expanded to fit a giant drumstick. Leo still hated seeing raw meat hauled around so badly, so he wordlessly looked to Aslan for a cleaner solution. Aslan immediately got the hint and promised to make containers or teach the automatons to use storage rings instead. Once that problem was delegated, Leo turned to the cow level with a much more personal interest and headed in eager to fight for meat. The cow realm was the complete opposite of the farm, a frozen blood swamp world drenched in inchi so intense it felt like it could freeze Leo from the inside. That freezing air hit an old nerve, and Leo briefly flashed back to being trapped under endless snow on Earth for centuries. Before he could dwell on it, a war cry shook the realm and 2,000 Godzilla-sized humanoid cows came charging with halberds. 10 minutes later, Leo was casually sitting on a mountain of dead cows and slicing meat off one to test the flavor. He cooked the slice with his own yang flame and found the monster beef shockingly rich, tender, and good enough to keep eating. The meat was more than delicious too, because every bite kept adding years to Leo's lifespan. An hour later 2 new 10,000 cow waves charged him at once, and Leo answered like he had just been served a bigger meal. When one cow snatched him up from underground, Leo calmly cut off its hands instead of panicking. Then he unleashed Blood Domain, ripping blood out through the cows' bodies and dropping whole armies in an instant. With the field cleared again, Leo happily counted the endless wagyu supply and started thinking like a shopkeeper instead of a fighter. He also noticed the cow's red metal halberd shrank to fit his grip, turning the realm into a weapon source too. That discovery sold him completely, and Leo decided his store was getting both a butcher shop and a new meat section. After learning the realm respawned 1,017-star deity cows and matching halberds every hour, Leo realized nobody else should ever wander in here. So he planted a big warning sign in front of the portal telling everyone that deities were inside and to stay out. Leo was satisfied with that precaution, but the very moment he turned to leave, the elevator brought in Gao Yan and Jin Yong. The 2 young immortals had been using this area as a hangout, and now they arrived strong enough to be overconfident and curious about the new realm. Leo warned them directly not to enter the blue portal because even deities lived inside, but Jin Yong only got excited by the challenge. Jin Yong pulled out salvage gear from Overlord Max's battleship and ignored the warning completely, vaulting over the sign and into the portal. Gao Yan hurried after him with Leo's pistol and a charged lightsaber, insisting he would drag his friend back fast. Leo could only watch both idiots vanish into the death trap he had just labeled for them. Inside the cow realm, Gao Yan and Jin Yong were thrilled at first because they had been sneaking into tougher realms for fun and wanted a real challenge. The realm almost killed them on contact with its cold and inchi, but instead of retreating they got even more excited by the danger. They joked about whether this was a true world of deities, completely missing that Leo's warning had already answered that. 10 seconds later, the cow monsters detected them and a single war cry shattered their confidence in one blow. The scream made both immortals bleed from the ears, lose strength in their legs, and realize far too late that they had messed up. Leo appeared behind them in a hazmat suit, arriving just in time to save the pair from their own stupidity. A lone cow warrior jumped behind them and blocked the exit portal, cutting off the clean escape route while the rest of the herd closed in. Leo answered with a lazy air punch that blew the blocker cow's head apart without him even stepping forward. Then he grabbed both injured idiots by the collar and literally threw them through the portal to safety. The enraged herd charged Leo next, and his mood turned cold enough to match the realm. With one contemptuous glare, Leo released an aura beyond a karmic sovereign and dropped the entire pack dead on the spot. After confirming the realm was clear again, Leo left without another word. Outside, Leo checked the 2 survivors and found the damage was much worse than they looked. The cow's scream had cracked their souls, ruined their hearing, wrecked Jin Yong's dantian, and nearly shattered Gao Yan's meridians. Leo gave them a blunt "I told you so," knowing they could not even hear the lecture through their burst eardrums. He hauled both of them down to his bus and locked them inside to recover, whether they liked it or not. With that mess handled, Leo went to the shopping mall warehouse to unload the new cow meat from his inventory. Even 500 corpses were enough to fill the underground storage, so the food side of the mall suddenly had a huge job ahead. After that, Leo finally checked the last Phase 3 reward and found it was a selectable SR building instead of a fixed one. A long catalog of buildings opened in front of him, and Leo made up his mind the moment he saw one specific choice. A day later, Philip and Andrea came to the mall to look around, with Andrea guiding him toward the time chamber she had mentioned before. Andrea explained he needed Huataishu to enter, but she also guessed they would not have to wait long for the Sword Saint to show up. Right on cue, Huataishu came out with a fresh batch of Amazonian sanctuary girls who had already been pushed up to quasi-immortal level and sharpened by sword training. Huataishu instantly locked onto Philip and declared, in his own blunt way, that he was going to train him harder because Philip was strong. Philip was caught off guard, but Andrea told him he would appreciate the chance once he survived it. Before Philip could decide, Huataishu solved the problem by lassoing him and 3 troopers and dragging the whole group into the chamber laughing. Andrea waved them off and started browsing the rest of the 4th floor on her own. The casino and boot camp did nothing for her, but a new 2-slot facility farther south immediately caught her eye. It was half bookstore and half staff-only library, and Andrea was already annoyed she could not just slip into the library side for free reading. Once she saw the sections, Her mood changed fast because this was not fluff merchandise but a full cultivation bookstore. She grabbed a sample cultivation manual and nearly lost her mind when it turned out to be a detailed, color-illustrated guide all the way to quasi-immortal stage. The title was almost insulting in how useful it was, and Andrea felt sick remembering the price she had paid for far less in her own world. The next book was a foundation building theory guide, and every page made Andrea angrier that nobody had taught her these basics years ago. She kept going until she had an armful of beginner books on cultivation, alchemy, sleep, and even surviving heavenly tribulations. At the counter, a wooden mannequin cashier scanned everything and showed her the price and lifespan instead of money. The total of 495 years made her hands shake, and for a moment she seriously considered putting the books back. Then she realized the books could be shared with others, and that pushed her into paying despite the pain. The cashier took the lifespan directly from her body, and Andrea accepted the loss because the knowledge was still worth it. That purchase gave Andrea a better idea too, and she rushed off to tell her crewmates to buy different books so they could pool the knowledge. Andrea was not the only one stunned, because old regulars like Hua Jiashan, Wu Bai, and Dong Fang Mei also found the bookstore and reacted like they had discovered treasure too late. 10 minutes later, even their pride lost to practicality, and they all lined up to buy what they had just been screaming over. Hua Jiashan still wanted answers, so he asked the shopkeeper where Leo had gotten books like these in the first place. The mannequin answered by pointing into the library, and at Leo's handwritten sign claiming he wrote them all and would not explain further. That answer left the crowd speechless, while Wu Bai just looked even more convinced that his lord was absurdly brilliant. Hua Jiashan filled in the gap himself by deciding Leo had to be some ancient supreme expert who had learned everything firsthand. Dong Fang Mei ignored the chatter, went straight to the immortal level section, and quietly bought 10 useful books for 900 years. Meanwhile, inside the library, Leo was taking a lazy break after beating 10,000 simulation opponents, and waiting for fresh knowledge to convert. When the system offered to turn new knowledge into books, Leo accepted immediately, and let 2 fresh volumes appear in front of him. He tossed the books to a librarian mannequin, who copied them in bulk while the system quietly charged Leo 100 years of lifespan for each 100-print batch. The new titles were a Lamia Anatomy Guide and the AMCA Family Blacksmith Techniques, both pulled from knowledge Leo had copied in simulation mode. After stocking the library first, the mannequin sent 10 copies of each into the bookstore, showing how Leo's new book complex now turned stolen knowledge into sellable inventory. While resting in the library, Leo gets approached by mannequins carrying wine bottles he never asked for, and the odd delivery immediately catches his attention. When Leo asks which department they belong to, the mannequins silently write a request asking him to speed up the wine's aging. Leo understands the idea, but instead of aging a few bottles by hand, he decides he would rather do the whole batch at once. Curious now, Leo follows the mannequins downstairs and finds out they are restaurant chefs brewing a new blood wine from cow, giant chicken, and giant pig blood. The recipe looks so unhygienic that Leo grabs bottles for testing first instead of trusting the mannequin's taste. In the alchemy workshop, Leo researches the fresh wine and learns it is harmless because the mixed yin and yang blood kills off the dangerous contamination, but the wine is still too young to do anything useful. Since the only problem is time, Leo uses his time-space domain on the second bottle and pushes its age forward by 100 years. The aged wine turns black, and when Leo spots a tiny mosquito hatchling wriggling inside, his first reaction is pure revulsion. But the next alchemy result flips his mood completely. The mosquito worm wine can evolve marrow and meridians, add lifespan, and dump 1,000 years of yin-yang qi into the drinker. After sacrificing the test bottle for research, Leo rushes back to the kitchen and orders every restaurant mannequin to move all fresh wine to the B3 floor so he can mass age it every day. The hive-minded kitchen staff react instantly, marching across the mall with box after box of wine, while confused visitors stop to watch Leo's latest project. Half an hour later, the wine returns to the stores as a new local specialty, and the restaurants and supermarket quietly launch mosquito worm blood wine as Florida Domain's newest trend. At the same time, Leo's bookstore explodes in popularity as cultivators and commoners crowd in for theory books and cultivation manuals. Even poor customers adapt fast by forming sharing groups and copying books, and cultivators start turning cheap manuals into a local pirate business. Leo lets the piracy slide because the copies still lose detail, and the chaos only spreads his books further and raises the world's overall level. The first floor restaurants also boom after Leo's agriculture realm floods them with beef, chicken, and pork, letting the cooks serve rich modern dishes that draw crowds with smell alone. Tang Tian swaggers into a steakhouse and bluntly demands the most expensive meal and the best wine they have. When the waiter pours him black wine with a live mosquito hatchling swimming inside, Tang Tian is instantly furious and accuses the restaurant of serving garbage. The mannequin calmly writes back that the worm is the whole point of the wine, and even carries a fragment of Lord Florida Man's aura. Repulsed but tempted by Leo's name, Tang Tian threatens the waiter and finally forces himself to chug the entire glass in one gulp. The dying worm explodes with yin-yang qi in his stomach, and the energy slams into Tang Tian's dantian so hard he nearly bursts from the overload. Tang Tian screams loud enough to shake them all, collapses on the floor drenched in sweat, and nearby people rush over thinking something terrible just happened. Instead of dying, Tang Tian's blocked meridians pop open on their own and his blood and marrow strengthen right in front of the audience. After 10 stunned minutes, he comes back to himself, notices 3 more mosquito worms still in the bottle, and nervously asks the waiter if drinking more will kill him. The waiter tells him to pair the wine with the steak, so Tang Tian awkwardly learns how to cut the unfamiliar dish and takes his first bite. The steak hits him even harder than the wine, and Tang Tian freezes in bliss as if his mind just got blasted into the cosmos. The crowd stops worrying and starts laughing because the mighty Tang patriarch now looks like a complete fool in public. One curious cultivator orders the same set, gets the same warning about the worm, and ends up falling into the same breakthrough trance once he eats. That copycat success turns the meal from a weird stunt into a real craze, and the first signs of a full food and wine breakthrough trend spread through Florida domain. Dongfang Mei and Hua Jiushan arrive carrying bookstore purchases, expecting a simple meal, and find their own master acting outrageously in front of everyone. The husband and wife joke that Tang Tian must be infected with Wu Bai level nonsense, and decide to sneak in and steal some of whatever he is guarding. Tang Tian instantly senses them, hugs his bottle and steak like treasure, and blasts both disciples clear out of the restaurant with heaven's celestial force. The pair land outside near the four-armed guardian statue and realize in shock that their master has climbed all the way to the 4th stage immortal realm again. Once they connect his new strength to the restaurant meal, they calmly go back inside and order the same thing for themselves. 15 minutes later, the 2 former mockers end up just as blissed out and helpless as Tang Tian, and their own cultivation starts surging too. The next day, Philip and his teammates finally crawl out of Hua Taishu's brutal training with fresh deity realm breakthroughs and new star-building knowledge in their dantians. Philip politely thanks Hua Taishu, gets the chilling answer of come again. You. Stronger, and leaves with very mixed feelings. On the way to rest, Philip runs into a lieutenant from his ship inside the domain, and immediately realizes something unusual is going on. The lieutenant explains that Major Andrea already went back to the ship after buying books so valuable that she awakened 2 new Dao avatars from them. That claim drags Philip to the bookstore, where he finds a huge queue and learns the manuals are so prized that people will trade 100 years of lifespan for one. The lieutenant adds that the restaurants can help people earn decades of lifespan back through the new steak and wine meal, but Philip still winces at how much essence stones that costs. Even so, curiosity wins, and Philip joins the back of the line because if his own subordinate is buying these books, he cannot ignore them. When he finally gets inside, Philip heads straight for the cultivation manuals and studies how the store separates beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert methods. As a fresh deity, he goes straight to the expert shelves and casually picks up the thickest book there. One glance at the contents tells him this is no ordinary manual, but a path that could carry a deity all the way toward entity realm power. When he sees the price is still only 100 years of lifespan, Philip decides the deal is absurdly good and immediately wants it. Then a different cover stops him cold. A black-winged angel he instantly recognizes as the infamous overlord Mao Miao Miao. He grabs the book at first just to sneer at a trader's teachings, but the contents hook him so hard that he ends up reading for 3 straight hours. What traps him is the forbidden Tao of soul transfer, a loophole that lets a person abandon one body and steal an artificial one at the cost of resetting their cultivation. The lost research reminds Philip of ancient human experiments, and the old government shutdown that buried this entire field out of fear of bigger enemies. Now holding banned knowledge in plain sight, Philip wrestles with whether to expose it, destroy it, or quietly keep it for himself. In the end, he rationalizes that the bookstore is already selling multiple copies, so he might as well take one and let the blame fall elsewhere if this ever goes wrong. He carries 2 expert books to the cashier, pays 200 years of lifespan, and hides both manuals inside his spatial ring. Just as Philip is leaving, a group of beautiful elf and mauled women cuts straight through the bookstore line, and the waiting customers stay silent instead of protesting. One blonde elf's face makes Philip go white because she resembles the divine elf queen every human is taught to fear. Philip bolts for the exit in pure survival mode, desperate to get out before that group notices him. He forgets the mall has a guardian now, and Chang Chang instantly moves to stop a powerful guest from fleeing the premises. Chang Chang catches Philip in all 4 stone arms and drags him back to the center fountain, where a newborn deity is completely helpless against an entity-level statue. Philip can only beg for mercy while Chang Chang wordlessly holds him in place and waits for someone else to deal with him. 6 hours later, Leo finds Philip still pinned there and immediately starts mocking him for looking like a man with a stone statue fetish. Philip finally snaps and yells at Leo to stop joking around and get him out of there. The women who caused Philip's panic barely noticed him at all, because Eason, Ivy, and Beatrice only came to the bookstore for their own reading tastes. While browsing, Eason gets a faint and easy feeling because life has been too smooth lately, and her thoughts drift to missing companions she has not seen around the domain. She especially wonders where Kat and Yao Chi-Chi have vanished to, because Kat at least hunts sometimes, but Chi-Chi's absence makes no sense to her. The answer is that Yao Chi-Chi has been hiding out in Magpie City with 3 clipped golden retriever werewolf puppies trailing after her like she is their mother. Yao Chi-Chi visits a black market, trades essence stones for spirit stones, and starts feeding the lowest grade ones to the puppies like dog food. When the puppies beg for more with innocent eyes, Yao Qiqi sees right through the act and scolds them to behave. After feeding them, she heads home with the dogs and accepts a ride from a passing merchant caravan along the way. During the ride, she overhears merchants arguing that winter is arriving absurdly early and that even Cauliflower City is supposedly already under snow. That rumor matters to Yao Qiqi because the coming cold could affect Leo and Izen's wedding, so she decides she needs to finish preparing Leo's gift soon and wonders if she should explore the world with her pets first. In the agriculture realm, worker mannequins march like ants under crushing gravity while hauling goods in and out for Leo's growing domain. Sierra, acting as governor here, kept plowing non-stop because the system wheat alone was not enough to feed Leo's expanding businesses. Using her unusual dowel, Sierra pulled down part of her dress, squeezed milk into the soil, and pushed fresh sugarcane sprouts up with chi. The crop took hold, but Sierra only frowned at her blistered hands and muttered that she wished Leo would milk her instead. That line rippled through the hive-minded mannequins, and the whole work crew stopped to stare at Sierra like she was the weird one. Outside the realm, Leo's restaurants exploded in popularity when monster beef started turning ordinary diners into absurdly strong cultivators. The meals were outrageously expensive, but rich cultivators still paid in essence stones while poorer hopefuls could only stare and dream of earning a chance. Since working for Leo was one of the few ways to earn those stones, job seekers flooded the mall's third floor and waited for a chance to catch his attention. The swelling crowd became impossible to ignore, and nearby powers like the Life Sword sect and Tang clan started paying close attention. Far east in the Sixth Element sect workshop, the elders discussed Tang Xian and Tang Tian going into seclusion after buying too many treasures from Leo. Their absence left Bao Sun, a poison elder and former imperial killer, itching to step out of the shadows and attach himself to Leo instead. Bao Sun argued that if they kept waiting politely, they would never earn Leo's notice or any real rewards from his rise. The other elders refused, saying Leo already paid them well enough and that shamelessly chasing him would only be greedy. Done with their caution, Bao Sun stormed out and flew toward Leo's shopping mall on his own. At the same time, Kat returned from seclusion in a new humanoid form, looking like a dark elf middle schooler in a vine dress even though her aura screamed Earth Celestial Immortal. Bao Sun sensed that massive aura, dropped from the sky, and immediately tried to introduce himself to the unknown immortal girl. Kat ignored the formalities and simply asked the stranger if he had food, leaving Bao Sun completely lost in her nom-nom language. The awkward exchange stretched until Kat's stomach growled so loudly that everyone nearby turned to look. As onlookers whispered about the strange long-haired girl, Kat sniffed Bao Sun and casually asked if she could eat him because he smelled like poisonous mushrooms. Before Kat could actually gulp him down, a passing worker mannequin hurled a huge slab of mad cow belly meat straight into her mouth. Kat happily chewed the meat, and the mannequin walked off like it had just handled a routine emergency. That was when the local cultivators finally recognized her as Kat, the famous monster plant who expected a nom-nom tax instead of manners. The moment they understood the danger, cultivators scrambled to kneel before Kat and pile food tributes at her feet. Kat accepted the tribute with a cheerful head pat, and the lucky cultivators fled after feeling the freezing energy in her touch. Bao Sun could only stare at the roadside chaos, realizing he had stumbled into local survival rules he did not understand. Later in Burger Kong, Wu Bai quietly read an alchemy manual over pricey burgers that now felt cheap compared to what they could do for cultivation. He got so absorbed in a section on quick alchemy that he forgot everything around him for half an hour. Tiger Swordsman suddenly appeared in the seat across from Wu Bai and started asking about the book and whether he would enter the time chamber again. Wu Bai brushed the idea off, insisting he was an alchemist and had no interest in grinding through sword training. Tiger Swordsman pushed harder, warning that the last invasion had proved how helpless everyone could be when real monsters showed up. That reminder did sting. But Wu Bai answered by saying the invasion had taught him a different lesson. Not everybody's role should be frontline combat. Wu Bai broke it down bluntly, admitting Tiger would obviously beat him in a fair fight and arguing that forcing every cultivator into battle was stupid. Drawing from the internet's military logic, he argued that armies also needed medics, mechanics, engineers, and other support experts, not just fighters. His rant snowballed into a real public lesson, and before Wu Bai noticed, a whole crowd had gathered around his table to listen. Several listeners even broke into enlightenment on the spot and hailed him as Great Teacher Wu. Wu Bai immediately shattered the solemn mood by yelling at them to get lost because this was a restaurant, not a zoo. From a fifth-floor balcony, Leo watched the chaos below with quiet pride as the local cultivators slowly adapted to his new world. Izen came up beside him with Ivy, Beatrice, and Mark, and she cut straight to what she wanted, free books without spending lifespan. Amused, Leo patted Izen's head and personally brought the whole group into the library. Inside the endless shelves, Leo gave them free reading rights but warned that the books had to stay in the library unless he printed copies himself. Beatrice, Mark, and Ivy bowed in thanks, while Izen proudly declared that this was exactly how her husband should behave. Leo wrapped an arm around Izen and she leaned into his chest, letting the moment feel peaceful for once. Elsewhere, a beautiful elf woman who looked almost exactly like Izen floated inside a high-tech water capsule surrounded by blue system screens. She opened her eyes and revealed herself as Eleanor, the divine elf queen who had trapped Izen there, and now wanted her awakened body as a spare vessel. As Eleanor stepped out and dressed, a silver werewolf commander reported that Princess Ellen had defected with Ohio Man, Overlord Milo, and others to join Overlord Xiao Mao. Eleanor dismissed that betrayal as unimportant because Izen's body now interested her far more. She kept one monitor open to a portrait of a handsome young man and remarked that the boy from the past had really risen again thanks to Phoenix bloodline power. When Lucky asked what came next, Eleanor gave the order that changed everything: gather every overlord and capture Florida Man and Crown Princess Izen at all costs. And when Lucky asked what to do if they resisted, Eleanor answered with chilling indifference that even limbless torsos would be enough. After a week in Leo's domain, Philip's crew finally wraps up its extended stay and prepares to leave with the soul stones Leo was holding for them. Philip thanks Leo sincerely, and Leo tells him to spread the word that one Earthling is doing just fine out here on his own. When Philip asks what Florida means, Leo deadpans that it is a hometown of cultured people and doubles down with a very suspicious smile. Philip accepts that strange answer and leaves, while Leo watches the ship depart and shifts back to business. Leo checks his lifespan and sees more than 21 million years, so money is no longer his problem. That huge balance only reminds Leo how packed his schedule is, with the Fate Stadium, the Mystic Realm season, and even a marriage ceremony waiting for him. As soon as Leo steps out of the shopping mall, Bao Sun from the Sixth Element sect stops him with a polite bow and asks to learn from him in person. Leo studies the sect elder in silence for a few seconds, and his expression turns cold the moment he decides exactly what kind of man is standing there. Instead of accepting him, Leo bluntly tells the elder to buy books if he wants to learn and refuses to waste any more time on him. Leo vanishes before the sect elder can stop him, leaving the frustrated elder staring at empty air. On a nearby rooftop, Leo admits he rejected Bao Sun because his quick simulations exposed an assassin full of corruption, bad karma, and modestly covered by careful framing and simple cloth ambition to steal Tang Tian's position. Because Leo hates schemers and bootlickers, he writes Bao Sun off as a shortcut-seeking opportunist and heads off to plan with Izen instead. 3 months later, the mainland is still reeling from collapsed sects, lawless cities, and repeated alien invasions that wiped out most of the population. With the old powers broken, Leo's Florida domain becomes the one strong refuge, absorbing survivors from major sects, clans, and nearby towns. That safety creates a new problem, because now too many people want one of the 10 slots on Leo's next Mystic Realm expedition. Life Sword Elders, Tang Clan members, and Sixth Element cultivators all push to go with Leo instead of trusting any other portal. To settle the flood of requests fairly, Ivy suggests an internal tournament, and Leo immediately uses that idea to decide the team. The 3-day selection tournament begins, but several expected heavy hitters are missing because they are in seclusion, injured, or simply not interested in going. When the final round ends, the shock winner is Cat, the hungry little mascot of Leo's domain, standing over the runner-up on the arena platform. Leo announces Cat's win by submission, and Cat's only concern is whether she is finally allowed to go eat. Leo feeds her on the spot, and Cat instantly turns her head into a chomper plant to swallow a giant slab of mad cow meat whole. The beaten finalist admits he got arrogant because he thought Cat's lower cultivation made her easy prey, and Leo can only say Cat is a special case. Leo knows exactly why Cat is so dangerous, because after becoming an immortal she still carries part of his original power. As Cat sprints for the granary, her 3 Dao avatars rush after her, and one of them is absurdly a man with Leo's own face. By the time the tournament ends, Leo has 8 qualifiers ready and keeps the last expedition slot for his own personal pick. The next morning, the chosen participants gather at the portal while the rest of the domain shows up to send them off. Watching from the side, Sunwon asks why everyone insists on Leo's portal when other sect portals still exist. Wu Bai answers with the obvious truth: if Leo leads the trip, people believe they might actually come back alive. He explains that ownerless portals have become death traps, because nobody sane wants to gamble on an unknown world without a powerhouse protecting them. Sunwon still wonders why Leo keeps the team so small when no alliance is left to enforce the old limit. Wu Bai guesses Leo is limiting numbers on purpose, either because he sees danger ahead or because fewer people are easier for him to protect. The two of them end up admitting the same thing. With all the cultivation resources inside Leo's domain, this expedition feels less necessary than ever and more like a dangerous trip for thrill seekers. When Leo arrives with Izen nearby, most people assume his wife will take the final slot without question. Instead, Leo shocks everyone by calling over Lucky, the giant wolf statue, and naming him the last member of the expedition. Lucky transforms on command into a towering werewolf golem, but the wagging tail and happy face make him look more like a giant good boy than a monster. Izen casually waves off the surprise choice, saying she would rather spend the time inside the time chamber than on a treasure hunt. With the roster settled, Leo opens the portal and tells everyone left behind where they can train instead. He recommends the agriculture realm for gravity training and the Orlando realm for stronger fighters, but warns that Orlando is packed with 9th stage beasts. When Wu Bai asks about the Cow level gate, Leo's mood hardens and he flatly says only deities and sages belong in there. Leo makes the danger impossible to ignore by revealing that the Kao level holds 100,000 deity stage monsters and that Gao Yen and Jin Yong are already months deep in a coma for pushing too far. Once the warnings are done, Leo turns to the expedition team and orders them to retreat immediately if they run into deity level threats after he clears the way. Kat immediately derails the serious briefing by asking the only thing she cares about, whether deities are edible. Ignoring that question completely, Leo enters first through the portal, while the team hangs back to let him handle the initial danger. Watching the departure, the same scheming sect elder gives up on sneaking into the expedition and decides to exploit the time chamber instead. Thinking the chamber should be empty, the sect elder rushes into the mall and heads straight for the 4th floor to steal a private advantage. At the 4th floor time chamber entrance, the scheming elder discovers Hua Taishu already standing there like an immovable wall. Hua Taishu takes one look at the elder, calls him weak, corrupted, and dumb, and decides on the spot to force some brutal discipline on him. Before the elder can react, Hua Taishu slaps him so hard his jaw pops out of place. Hua Taishu follows with pressure point strikes that lock the elder's body in place, then lands a second slap while he is helpless. Calling it discipline, Hua Taishu smacks the paralyzed elder with his sheathed sword and drags him straight into the time chamber. The elder technically gets into the time chamber after all, just not in the way he wanted. On the other side of the gate, Leo emerges alone into a huge forest city built around colossal oak trees and instantly realizes this realm is far more inhabited than expected. Children with green hair run across the bridges overhead, and the sheer number of immortal-level life signatures makes Leo suspect he has landed on an actual alien civilization, not a simple monster realm. Before he can investigate further, a poisoned arrow shoots straight at his face. Leo catches the arrow casually, notices the acidic poison on the tip, and treats the ambush like a mild annoyance. To make the point even harder, Leo rips off the poisoned arrowhead and eats it like candy, crunching through the metal without a hint of strain. He even chews the wooden shaft afterward, casually turning the whole attack into extra lifespan. After eating the attack, Leo spots the archer overhead and orders the green-clad stranger to come down and talk. The masked green-haired archer shouts down for Leo's name, race, and business in the neutral forest of Desnitz, making the place sound even stranger. The name Desnitz catches Leo off guard for a second, then he remembers from copied memories that it is actually a puppet organization serving divine elf matriarch Eleanor. Armed with that recognition, Leo points up and warns the archer to spread the word that a friendly Florida man has arrived, because another attack will bring out the angry version instead. The first archer backs off to spread the message, but instead of calming down, more local militias appear and surround Leo with drawn bows. Leo sizes up the militias as heaven and sky celestials and starts wondering if he should simply erase the whole lot of them. That impulse stops cold when Leo notices a blonde elf mother carrying her infant on a bridge overhead, because her face and aura look shockingly similar to Easen's. From above, Esther studies the stranger she cannot read at all and quietly asks the same question now hanging over the whole forest city. Who is this man? Kat, Lucky, Hua Jiashan, and the others step through the portal and walk straight into a bad welcome, with 100 green-haired immortals already surrounding Leo. More elves watch from the hanging bridges above, and the air is so murderous that the whole place feels one step away from a massacre. Lucky answers that pressure with raw force, releasing his entity aura so hard that the surrounding elf immortals cough blood and crash to their knees. The elves are stunned that the monster crushing them is not even a person, but a statue bragging that Lord Florida Man made him. Leo immediately cuts Lucky off and orders him to hide his aura before he turns a warning shot into a real disaster. A baby's cry from the bridge stops everything, because Lucky's pressure still reached the civilians overhead. Leo snaps at Lucky for hurting women and children, then rushes to help instead of arguing any longer. Wearing the suit, Leo leaps up to the bridge and starts feeding hope and dream pills to the injured civilians to stabilize them fast. He gives Esther's baby a carefully reduced dose and feeds Esther herself a full pill, treating the mother and son like the real emergency. Esther and her baby pull through, and once she checks him herself, Leo sees the child was terrified and briefly suffocating, not fatally injured. Leo spends hours and burns through 1,000 pills before every civilian is finally rescued and the panic dies down. When Leo finally jumps back down after hours of treatment, the elf side stops hiding and sends a representative to meet the group. The elf representative introduces himself as General Venditito, apologizes for the reception, and claims they had no idea visitors from another planet were coming. Leo answers politely as Florida Man from Florida Domain and explains that his group only entered a mystic realm portal looking for opportunities. The name Florida Man rings a bell, so the elf general quietly sends a secret message to another officer to confirm who just arrived. Far away, another elf general answers that Florida Man is already on the Queen's wanted list and tells them to stall instead of provoking him. After that warning, the elf general smoothly shifts into host mode and invites Leo's whole group to continue the talk at the palace. With one casual motion, the elf general heals the whole settlement at once, and Leo instantly marks that mass healing trick as something worth stealing later. Leo tells Lucky to become a wolf so he can ride and meditate, acting relaxed while he gets ready to study the elf general in secret. As the group marches toward the palace, Leo closes his eyes to meditate on Lucky's back while the elf general mistakes that calm for naivety and keeps stalling for time. During the march, Cat keeps staring at the green elves like dinner, and one of Leo's beast companions has to keep pulling her back before she does something stupid. Another beast companion smacks the first one for encouraging Cat, because one bad joke here could drag the whole group into war. After an hour, the party reaches a white fortress made of sparkling jade-like metal, and Cat immediately wants to eat the walls too. Leo opens his eyes at the fortress with a satisfied grin, because his meditation time was not wasted at all. He strips off the hazmat suit, calls Cat over, and treats her to a strange green light from his fingertip. Cat swallows the stolen nature magic like candy, glows green for a moment, and instantly begs for more. Inside his Danteon universe, Leo has already run thousands of practice fights against a clone of the elf general to dissect his nature magic, railgun shots, and domain tricks. The clone immediately blasts Leo in the face with black lightning from a railgun, proving the elf general's style is a nasty combat combo, not gentle support magic. A giant nature domain spreads out, black stone spikes erupt, and the spikes turn into hunting trees that keep chaining attacks together. Leo lets the clone keep hitting him on purpose, because getting caught in the full sequence teaches him more than winning fast ever did. At last he sees the hidden payoff, where healing magic and creation magic fuse into a black rune that literally spells death. Leo finally grasps the real rule behind the combo. Creation magic can rewrite another spell and turn healing into reverse healing. Once he figures that out, Leo drops his own circle, imagines the word steal, and rips control of Venditito's completed spells right out of the domain. With the lesson learned, Leo casually slices the clone's head off and comes back to reality with the elf general's tricks now in hand. Back in reality, Leo notices the fortress gate slams shut behind the group the moment everyone is inside. Leo jokes under his breath, but the closed gate confirms what he already suspects, that this polite escort is really a trap in progress. The elf general tests the waters by asking why Leo is riding a Fenrir-like wolf golem, clearly probing for his connection to their werewolves. Leo plays dumb at first, then pointedly says he only knows that werewolves invaded his friend's planet, and he did not appreciate it. When Leo names Overlord Lucky as that friend, the elf general is visibly thrown off because that should be one of his queen's own top people. Still stalling, Venditito offers guest rooms and a welcome banquet instead of pressing the contradiction any further. Leo answers by scanning the whole fortress, quietly counting thousands of soldiers and several stronger experts before he asks his real question. Leo pulls out a Sky Fate crystal and asks whether this planet has more, turning a trade question into a test of how honest the elves plan to be. The elf general lies smoothly that he has never seen such a crystal, and Leo immediately decides there is no reason to leave his weaker people trapped in this fortress. Leo calmly asks for the gate to be reopened so his companions can go back through the portal instead of wasting days here. At the same time, Leo secretly warns two beast companions that the green elves plan to kill them here, and orders the groups sent home before the trap closes tighter. The elf general hesitates, but once Leo says he will stay behind himself, the order goes out to escort the others back to the portal. Leo quietly sends Lucky out with the retreating group and tells him to kill anyone who tries a trick on the way back. Confused but obedient, Hua Jiashan and the others file out under guard while Leo deliberately stays behind inside the trap. Once his people are out, Leo turns almost cheerful again and tells the elf general to lead on, making it clear he does not feel cornered. Outside the fortress, Cat is still thinking about eating the walls until one of Leo's beast companions finally explains that he sent them out because enemies were waiting inside. The moment Cat hears those green elves are enemies, her whole mood brightens in the worst possible way. Before Taxi can stop her, Cat darts toward the nearest escorting soldier, already treating him like a snack instead of a person. She even tugs the elf's shirt and politely asks to eat him, which only gives him one confused second before disaster hits. Then Cat's mouth expands like a monster's and she swallows the elf whole in one gulp, ending the escape on a brutal note. Right after Cat secretly eats an escort soldier, only Taxi and Ricardo notice, and both of them panic that her stunt could get the whole group killed. Cat smugly points out that nobody noticed the missing escort, because all attention on the road is fixed on Lucky and the squad leader, while the rear of the caravan goes ignored. Taxi forces Cat to promise this was the last one, and Ricardo and Taxi immediately box her in from both sides so she cannot slip out of formation again. A powerful green elf named Rockheart Pepperpile has been watching Leo's group the whole time, and Cat's hidden kill never escaped his senses. Instead of reporting Cat for murder, Rockheart gets openly interested in her little dark elf appearance, and starts lusting after her on the spot. Rockheart's filthy thoughts leak out as a visible purple aura, and Hua Jiashan, Han Hao, Han Meng, Tiger Swordsman, and Dong Fong may all react at once to how wrong he feels. Even Rockheart's own men are disgusted, because they know this is just the usual sign that their captain is hunting young girls again. Halfway to the portal, Rockheart suddenly orders a rest stop, clearly using the break to make his move. While the others try to relax, Cat, Taxi, and Ricardo stay close to Lucky, and Rockheart walks straight over to start talking to Cat. Rockheart opens with fake friendliness, but Cat just tilts her head and asks the only thing she cares about, food. When Rockheart cannot understand Cat's speech, Lucky translates that she is a mutated dryad born from their lord's essence, and still too young to speak normally. The moment Lucky adds that Cat is less than a year old, Rockheart is stunned for a beat and then gets even more obsessed. Rockheart drops the act and asks if Cat is a servant or a slave, because he wants to buy her outright for himself. Taxi and Ricardo snap instantly, jumping between Rockheart and Cat and making it clear he would have to kill them first. Rockheart backs down only because Lucky outranks him, and Lucky bluntly shuts him down with the message that nothing here is for sale. The second Rockheart turns away, his face goes cold, and he decides to solve this by force instead. Rockheart secretly reports that one of Leo's people killed a soldier, and asks for help dealing with Lucky so the intruders can be arrested. His superior answers immediately that he will handle the escort entity himself, so Rockheart should call backup and move on the group. That promise is all Rockheart needs, and he starts looking forward to taking revenge on Cat's protectors once backup arrives. Far away in space, Eleanor's flagship and its cubic motherships reform their battle formation as they prepare to enter Esther's planet orbit. Inside the flagship, Eleanor lounges on a sofa while her Grand Commander Daobad Dragondees readies his build and equipment for a coming fight. Daobad's strange system lets him keep leveling by killing peers at his own realm, so he treats every rare worthy opponent like a precious chance. When Daobad draws his weapons near the Queen, Eleanor's beast-like bodyguard immediately warns him to stand down and stop brandishing arms beside her. Daobad puts the weapons away with a mocking smile, while Eleanor ignores the argument and closes her eyes to slip her Dao into Leo's mind. Eleanor's spying ability works only on Fate Crystal users, so she uses Leo's crystal link to quietly enter his consciousness and start digging through his mind. What she finds first is bizarre. Leo is staring forward with a completely blank head, as if he has no thoughts at all. When Eleanor pushes deeper into Leo's core memory, she runs into a sealed mental wall built from divine elf magic and another sovereign's Dao. Eleanor recognizes the seal as her own old brainwashing work and smugly decides Leo must be one of her lost pawns that she can simply rewrite again. The trap snaps shut instead. The seal transforms into a giant rainbow-lit eye that stares straight back at her. Startled badly enough to break the link, Eleanor jerks awake on the ship drenched in sweat and immediately realizes Aslan must still be alive. Elsewhere, Leo only feels a creepy itch in his head and scratches at his scalp, confused by the brief sense that something was crawling inside his brain. At the Mystic Realm platform, Aslan quietly mocks Eleanor for tripping the safeguard he hid inside his son's mind. Using the same trap, Aslan traces Eleanor's location and sends her coordinates out to powerful figures inside the Fate Stadium. Inside the Fate Stadium, Milo grins at the news, but Simba goes pale because Eleanor is suddenly far too close to the home where Esther and his son are waiting. Back at Parady's fortress, Leo finally sees the inside and realizes the whole place is a cramped white maze built to slow invaders with heat, narrow halls, and glowing young stone. As the fortress lord boasts that the old maze was built for defense, Leo mocks the whole layout as pointless once real powerhouses can just blast through it or teleport inside. Vendetito tries to save face by bragging that the Styx clay walls can resist everything short of a karmic sovereign. Leo gets tired of the stalling, quietly touches a wall, and starts stealing chunks of the fortress straight into his inventory. Once he realizes Vendetito still has not noticed, Leo gets greedier and starts looting walls, doors, furniture, and even the ceiling while walking. The breeze from all the missing walls finally tips the fortress lord off, and the moment he starts to turn around, Leo drops the act and prepares to strike. Leo freezes the whole solar system with his time and space domain and moves first before Vendetito can spring whatever trap he had planned. Leo moves first inside the frozen domain and kills Vendetito with one punch before the elf can trigger anything. Vendetito's soul still tries to escape even inside the frozen domain, so Leo crushes that too and makes sure the kill is final. With the fortress master dead and time still under his control, Leo immediately switches from assassination to looting mode. At almost the same moment, Daobad teleports out toward Parady's fortress before Eleanor's ship is caught inside Leo's spreading time domain. Inside the frozen flagship, Eleanor breaks free easily, and her beast-like bodyguard does the same, proving Leo's time stop is dangerous but not absolute at their level. Eleanor ignores Leo for a moment and panics over the bigger problem. If Aslan survived, then her old massacre order failed completely. She teleports far away to the universe's vast white sea and searches the Karma River itself for the souls of Aslan, Mao Miao Miao, and the others tied to the project. She finds some of the dead scientists and local elves, but neither Aslan nor Mao Miao Miao is there, which confirms that both are more complicated than she hoped. That discovery drags Eleanor into the past, back to when Aslan was a record-breaking divine elf prodigy whose brilliance first caught her eye. Eleanor wanted Aslan's talent and bloodline badly enough to invite him into her harem, but he refused and took a lowly mission to Earth instead. She followed him to Earth and made him her disciple for a while, but even then Aslan kept pulling away whenever she tried to turn the relationship intimate. The real insult came later, when Aslan chose a human woman, married her, and had a son named Leonardo instead of choosing Eleanor. Humiliated and furious, Eleanor joins Dr. Mao and the local authorities in dragging little Leonardo into the soul transfer project as a monitor test subject. Aslan fought to keep his son alive by tricking Eleanor into funding better bloodline material, even pretending he would leave his wife and join her if the project succeeded. That scam worked long enough for Leonardo and Simba to evolve into bodies compatible with divine elf souls. But the second Eleanor expected Aslan to surrender himself, he ran with Leonardo and Simba and hid them in Florida for decades. Remembering all of that only hardens Eleanor, and she swears she will kill both father and son herself this time. To make sure she cannot be stopped, Eleanor claims the entire Karma River as her own and drags the White Sea of Souls into her Dantean universe. The stolen river boosts her cultivation and strengthens her self-resurrection, leaving her convinced that neither Aslan nor Leo can face her now. Eleanor teleports to the top of Parady's fortress where Daobad is already free, and she orders Leo's death without caring what happens to his soul. Daobad answers by drawing on the water of his Karma River and aiming not at Leo's body first, but at the time and space domain itself. Inside the fortress, Leo senses the two karmic sovereigns overhead and immediately remembers the weak point of his own domain. So instead of letting them break it cleanly, Leo retracts the time domain and replaces it with a giant spell circle that turns the whole fortress into slow motion. Daobad still smashes the slow spell in one hit, but the swap buys Leo the split second he wanted. Using that brief opening, Leo kicks off and teleports into the sky above the fortress before the two sovereigns can pin him down below. Now face to face in the air, Leo and Eleanor lock eyes, and Eleanor is visibly shaken because his face looks exactly like Aslan's. Eleanor's killing intent softens for a second as she tests him with a simple question, calling him Florida Man.